This is FraudTax, back to back, exploring the facts. I'm your host Diego, and we're gonna go around here real quick.
I'm Brent.
Introduce everybody.
I'm Af Tom.
Diego.
I'm Raj.
Did you say Diego?
No.
My name's Diego.
No.
That's good.
That's literally what people say every single time. They're like, Liego. I'm just like, did I say that?
Yeah. You start to question yourself a little bit. Yeah, like.
No, it's Liego.
Well, I'm glad to have you. It's glad to have you here. The time being.
Hyper Diego.
The one who was once Diego. So yeah, I'm taking a turn at the front of the table. That's fun. I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I get to see you guys a little bit more than at the last group chat. So we'll see how that goes. And I'll be piloting and steering this discussion tonight. How's everyone's week?
I went and saw Avengers.
Don't
I'm gonna
spoil
spoil it for everybody.
No spoilers.
God, if you say anything.
Nipsey Hussle shows up and kills Thanos.
Actually, that's okay. I'm glad you told me that.
What happens is Arya Stark actually comes in.
You can't ruin
I
Game of
watched
Thrones.
that either. I miss Game of Thrones.
Oh damn!
Are you current though?
I just started watching it like 5 episodes ago. But I think I know.
It's a good time to jump in.
It's a good time to
I know
watch a
everything.
good
I
show,
know it.
yeah. It's a good time.
Whatever.
I'm pretty sure. I know it, yeah. My week was long. I feel like all my weeks are just long. Just how they feel.
I heard that.
Long weeks.
Can't sleep enough. Don't have enough time to do what I want to do.
Man.
Except for this.
What about you, Raj? What's been going on?
Not much. Not much at all.
So working on your paper, working on your
My dissertation.
dissertation.
Yeah.
Hell
Yeah, the paper.
The paper, the folder,
All sorts of stuff.
the multiple
It's
papers.
a couple binders. And
What's the topic again?
Corruption in formal institutions and stuff. Yeah.
Sounds like it's gonna be interesting.
We
Some-
talked about it actually.
Yeah, we have a podcast coming out with Raj pretty soon about what he's writing about and his whole PhD and everything. So
Damn.
stay tuned for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
just the facts. This is where we need the soundboard.
Yeah, no, let's talk about get into what you do, Raj. Just a little bit. I think we all should just go around the table and kind of do that. Just kind of talk about like what you do day to day and whatever.
Well, I'm just. You mean like what I do in terms of my job?
Yeah.
I'm
Like
a
your
P-
title or whatever.
I'm a PhD student at Penn, and I work for an NGO in London called Chatham House, where I'm lucky enough to do some of the research that I do in Nigeria, and I do it through the NGO. Day to day, I just try and finish my dissertation. Like I wake up thinking I'm gonna get this much written, and I go to bed being depressed at not having like
Right.
even close to getting that much written. But that is like standard at this state when you're in the writing stage of the dissertation. That's like pretty normal. It's like you didn't get as much as you want to get done, but you hopefully it's gonna get done eventually.
Right. Diego, you wanna?
My name's Diego. I'm a neonatal pediatric cardiopulmonary specialist. I love what I do every day on the day to day. It's night shift. It's crazy. I used to deliver babies up in Allentown, just doing work up there with their respiratory department, and it was amazing, and I loved it, and it was white as hell, and I had to get the fuck up out of Allentown. It's a PSA to everybody, if you ever go up north of Bethlehem, watch your back. Yeah, they tried to fire me on some bullshit. I'll talk about that later, but I like finesse my way out of that, and I'm mad happy to do what I do. And when I'm not there, I do this, play music. That shit.
Mad ups.
You wanna go?
Is
Is it in order here? Do I have
Skip
to?
one.
All right, I'm Brent. I do FraudTax. I interview people. I'm an artist. I make clothing. I'm a busser. I'm not gonna tell you where. Do not show up. Do not come to my job.
I'm gonna post it in the comments.
Actually, busser / barback. I do not just pick up trash. Well, I do, but it's whatever. I do a lot of shit. That's not, but yeah.
My name is Haftam Kasai. I'm a paralegal. I'm trying to go to law school. I want to be an entertainment lawyer. I know these guys because I'm also a filmmaker and I like to make videos, do music videos, documentaries, all kinds of art. I'm trying to get into a lot of different things. I'm a really curious person. This shit's always really interesting. People say really cool stuff. So let's get into it, y'all.
They sure do.
Everyone has like a cool
Oh wait, no. Did we?
Never
That
mind.
is
Skip
your
you or
mic.
restart?
No,
No, you skipped me. It's
Oh, I'm.
okay. I was
Wait,
like,
no.
okay.
I was a dick.
Yeah, I was like,
It's fine.
Introducing
Like,
Lieko.
no, it doesn't matter.
Lieko, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Lieko. That's spelled R-I-E-K-O. The R sounds like an L. It's kind of crazy. I'm a model. I'm a singer, songwriter, and a social activist. So I really want to save the world. I want to change the world by like being myself.
I know that's right.
As long as it's not harmful to anyone or anyone, you know. Yeah. So, and I want everyone else to do the same thing because I feel like we could all do it, just like not hurt people. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me. And I'm a full-time student at the University of the Arts where I study vocal performance, but I'm graduating on May 16th.
Look it
Okay.
up. Congrats,
Oh
grad.
yeah, right?
Are you ready to be done? Are you
Yeah.
tired?
How
of
do you
the-
feel?
I feel like I wasted a lot of money because I wasn't ready to go to school. And my mindset was not in the place to like spend all this money and be here and like learn because I didn't really learn anything there. But I know that like everything happens for a reason. It was like a life experience and like that's cool, you know. But I'm moving to New York in June, so I'm excited for that.
What's up?
Nice. Awesome. What
Oh,
part?
yeah.
Hopefully Brooklyn. I haven't really found a
because,
place, but I'm out.
Mhm,
Lease is
mhm.
up. It's time to go, so, like,
Not really sure what's happening after this, but like I know
yeah.
this shit.
But I'm not
Yeah.
staying
Yes,
in
not
Philly.
staying.
Hell no.
Yo, I know that feeling.
I'll come back though. Once we get
Don't come back. Don't come back here. Why?
What?
What the
I'm
fuck?
sorry. I'm
Yo.
sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Get out of here.
Never mind.
Just get out. Just get out. Go. Run fast, quick, as far as you can. Don't come back.
That's crazy.
That's how I feel. No, I'm joking. I love Philly.
Me too. It's a great city, great people.
It is dope.
It's worked for my current experience, you know.
I mean, I was born here. I'm from here, West Philly.
Yup.
Whole life.
60th in Baltimore. Let's go.
West Philly is the best Philly I've heard.
Songs started going dumb hard in the back. I was like,
yeah, I was about to
oh,
like,
yeah,
it was a
I'm
quiet
ready.
intensity out here. I'm about to fuck it up. Like,
I didn't even know what was going
this
on.
guy's
Just,
just,
like,
just
fucking
one
grooving to
solid.
it.
So who wants to go first with their topic for the week?
I'll open it up. Sure, I'm at the head of the table. Why the hell not? My topic for this week is BrainX. BrainX is a Obama era R&D like kind of brainchild that was spawned from this like R&D effort. So money had been subsidized and put forward to try and see what happens as far as cellular death is concerned following the end of life of the corporeal being, so to speak. We currently, I mean, they use pig brains for the study, right? So, I mean, pig brains, obviously they use pig anatomy because it's very close to ours. They swapped, pigs that went to slaughter, it was done in a humane manner. That were going, like they were pigs for consumption anyway. They essentially had them, that was done, the life was terminated, and they had the pig brains placed into a device, right? Now the device essentially is like two prongs here that are set up like an extracorporeal membrane oxygenator or an ECMO circuit, but instead of using like regular, like blood, like an ECMO circuit would use, it uses a perfusate that stops cellular death on various different levels, right?
So basically, a perfusate is like some liquid they made up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, just
Instead of
some
blood.
liquid of X viscosity containing Y, and that's kind of like they pump that essentially through the brain, and what it does as it like pulsates through the mind and through the brain tissue, it stops, or not stops, but it slows down the process of the cellular death process that's going on, right?
Apoptosis.
Apoptosis, yeah. So there's a couple of things that go on. One, there's the oxidative damage that happens like just when you have like being in an oxygen-rich environment and not consuming that oxygen and turning it into CO2 and then sending the CO2 back out through your bloodstream, exhaling it through your lungs, blah, blah, blah. If you like have too much oxygen, essentially being bathed in oxygen that way, it starts to kill your cells very quickly. Same reason why, you put an apple on the table, it starts to become moldy and it gets brown like over time because that's oxygen literally just eating away at the organic tissue. So it stops that from happening a little bit, and there's like a proprietary blend of XYZ that causes that to happen. It also goes after ceasing apoptosis, which is cells essentially just imploding. So it's like if they, with the same imbalance that's going on with the oxygen, you still have a lot of like shifts as far as like chemical balances inside and outside of the cell, and that causes the cells to either like suck in and implode or explode because there's too much water rushing in and the osmosis isn't being managed by like having energy and everything that way. So things that this study I think is really interesting about it, right? One is that like the implications of what it is that you can do with this, right? So they were able to extend the life. Normally, a brain will begin to die 15 minutes after it's, the rest of the body is seized. Once the heart is stopped beating, all the brain is still and settled. Like 15 minutes from that moment, that's kind of when your brain starts to die. They were able to go 10 hours. Right? Of sustained, yeah. And so what they call like a successful trial, it's sustained cellular activity. So the cells, even after that 15-minute mark when they would normally stop, were still consuming oxygen and releasing CO2. Now, there's another thing that happens as far as like your brain activity, right? That was the first question I asked. I was like, is it thinking? Like you fucking plug it up to a little screen. It's like, hello, Michael. What happens if it has some sort of output or anything that way? They actually were stopping the trial if they ever saw any sense of like sentience, essentially, right? So if they saw like any sort of like they had electrical current like hooked up to diodes, so they didn't see any, but they had a plan in place that if they did see like some sort of like transmission to go through, but they also didn't provide any stimuli, right? Because it's like they didn't. I mean, I know that happens naturally in life.
So a brain can exist outside of a body?
Yeah.
Is what you're proposing?
I mean, yeah, essentially. I mean, obviously the process of extracting the brain.
Futurama got it right.
Right, with the bats.
Like, and that's the thing. Essentially, like bringing the brain out does like, it kills the being or everything. But I think that personally, so ethically, I was having this discussion at work. And people were saying that you shouldn't, I was saying, well, why don't we give it a stimulus, right? We have a mind outside, we have 10 hours, right? Why don't we give it a stimulus and see if it gives us anything back? Even if it's information that we can't read, even if it's just an EKG waveform or something, like that could be an entirely different language. That could be an entirely different, and like you can extrapolate it out further as far as you want to, but like, you could be asking, like, oh, someone's like, he died on the scene or does whatever, you have something that you can like hook up into their jugular veins and be like, who killed you? And get a, get a readout or something like that Black Mirror episode, so just to tie it all in. Yeah. So it's like, these are real life applications of shit that's happening. And I just kind of wanted to poll the group, right? What do you think? Do you like, because me personally, what I see from this is when I die, I want my brain sent to Mars. So we can have a brain colony out there thinking, doing whatever, blah, 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 all that
so
other shit.
So you want to be a brain in a vat?
I'd be into being a brain, and like...
Only if you have internet access or just generally?
Yes.
Like, what if you only have...
What if you just absorbed into the internet? Like, what if you're like... This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking.
You could upload me the net. I'm into that.
What if they're able to like download the brain at some point, And if they can preserve the brain for however long after you die, right? Like 10 hours, you can upload your brain into the internet or whatever, and then continue to function or continue to do shit, right?
Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
I don't understand the original thing. So the original thing is like, what was the reason why people didn't want sentience for ethical reasons?
Ethical reasons, yes. So, and that's kind of like the other side of the discussion is like, should we be trying to give stimulus to these disembodied brains and see if they can think?
But the brain that you were describing is a pig's brain.
It's a pig brain, yeah, exactly. And I don't see any reason why you wouldn't replicate the same study and try and like. Oh,
I see. Okay, so the application would be it could bring your brain back to life, or it could bring like if your body's not working,
it can prevent
be like,
your brain from dying in the first
place. There you go.
Oh, okay.
After a traumatic event to your body.
Yes. And so it does also raise a couple of questions about like when brain death is established, right? Because if you have a brain that has been starved of oxygen, and because it's not an emergency saving mechanism, right? So it's like if someone gets shot on the street and you get there an hour later, it's not like, oh man, we have 8 hours left. No, it started in 15 minutes. So unless the person dies in front of you and you have, that's the thing that you're going to hook them up to, they've made that decision.
So it'd be like the application would be actually in like an operating theater or
yes.
something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How do you know that they weren't lying about the whole we didn't find anything? What are they talking about?
And don't. That's what terrifies me.
Yeah, I feel like that's what makes me nervous is that us as the general public, we only get a glimpse of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if they were able to, they had the capacity to go that far, like who's to say that they didn't actually go that far and like do those things? I think that's what that was my first thing. I was just like, how do you know that they didn't actually get there?
I think that there are probably a bunch of other tests around the same type of, inquiry that did the same thing. Yeah, like there's probably a bunch of studies like, oh, let's see what we can do with this. And there's probably people that wanted to go way farther and that's, and test that. But then you probably don't hear about it now because,
I mean, and stuff like that, especially in government funded projects, there are a decent amount whenever, as we know, that when a document is released to the general public, there's a decent amount of it that gets redacted.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yo, let's talk
then
about
you
that.
this
yo.
XYZ unethical thing and learn this thing.
you know, and they're like, oh yeah, this is just the brain X, but the brain C, that's brain conscious. We plug that shit up. You know what I'm saying? Like you just,
Yeah.
it's been happening simultaneously the entire time.
What
When
did
can
you think about Trump's report? What was the report that came
the
out?
Mueller report?
Yeah.
What is? I don't fucking. What
The
is
didn't
that?
hear about it?
investigation to Trump's shenanigans.
Yeah.
Basically, the book report of what Mueller, the dude at the FBI who was investigating him for the past how long? 3 years?
Yeah, 3-4 years, something like that.
However long he's been.
A president.
I just feel
29
like
years.
it's
3
it's
years.
more
3
things
years.
for us to just get caught up in, just so we talk and talk and talk, but nothing actually gets done. He was supposed to get impeached like the day he was put in office, wasn't he? Right?
Impeachment is a difficult. I'm finding
Is it-
via my research,
Bill
impeachment
Clinton, is
a.
Is it?
Yeah,
You get a
apparently-
blowjob. That's
apparently,
it. But however,
Times have changed now. It's cool. Now, once he
wasn't-
breaks the rules,
But
you
that
know.
wasn't a successful impeachment. That's the worry.
That's true. Yeah, it was more
That
court of
helped-
public
that
opinion than
helped
anything
Bill
else.
Clinton when he got impeached.
He's like, I'm a great guy. I just made a mistake in life, and
Yeah.
Also, how much my president gets his dick sucked is none of my business.
Yeah.
But he got
That's
impeached for
true.
lying about it in the same way. He'd be impeached for the same thing that Trump would get impeached for lying.
yeah, but
Exactly,
The
yeah.
GOP
In that
is
same-
enabling the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're
But
they're
the
like,
thing is-
oh, this is our boy, regardless of what the fuck
But
he does.
it doesn't matter. Like if the reason why they want to impeach him is because it helped Bill Clinton. His ratings went up after he got impeached. So it just looks like if you don't. I mean, it's more complicated than this, but basically, if you don't control both houses, it looks like you're just like Democrats are being annoying and like obstructionists for no reason.
Yeah,
you need to
they're-
control both houses, or at least get like Republican buy-in. That's what they're thinking. That's what at least Nancy Pelosi is saying.
Nancy Pelosi, bless her heart, she's just getting up there, struggling. Every single time I see her, I'm like, damn, y'all can't get nobody else in there. She is really having a hard time. She's
Isn't
really
she the one
having
that
a hard time.
said something about being like half Indian or something like
No,
that?
she
What?
did it.
That wasn't her.
No, she was.
No, I'm
Did they
I
say
don't
that?
know.
Worry about
Did
it.
they
Who
say
was
that?
that?
Okay, what's it? I didn't hear about
I
this.
feel like she apologized for it.
Yeah, and then Trump's like,
Oh.
yeah, show us like the.
You're
No,
right,
that-
you're
Oh my
right.
God, yo, that is
Who
what
was
that
that?
bro.
No, that's Elizabeth Warren.
That was a.
Oh,
okay.
You mean
okay.
half Native
okay,
American,
yeah.
not Indian.
Alright, oh, yeah.
He calls it Pocahontas. He's just being racist. He's
Yeah,
being
I
racist.
was just gonna say, it sounds like he's just being racist as fuck. And saying, toting the same bullet. Let me see you fucking.
But she was also lying about
Bullshit
something.
Was she lying about
She
that?
she said that she was like, I think like she said that she was some part Native American, but whatever part Native American she said wasn't actually like that tribe was just like that's not how this works. And then but then so then he started calling her Pocahontas, which is racist.
It's very
It's
racist.
just like oh like some Native American person, whatever.
Yeah.
And then she brought it up on herself though, because she tried to come up with her blood, the blood percentage of how much like of the tribe's blood she had, and that backfired because that's when the Native American tribe was just like this. That's not how our citizenship works.
Yeah.
You can't just show us a piece of paper and be like, oh, I'm Native American. So then like she took an L all around.
Backwards L. A Waluigi
Yeah.
L.
It's not good that.
No, but the reason
It's
why,
not good
so
that
the reason
Trump
why people were,
didn't- yeah.
the reason why people were so pissed off about that was because she's a professor at Harvard Law, and Native Americans are super underrepresented, like really, really underrepresented compared to their population.
Just to give us some sense of perspective, they're already a super minority, and even then they're underrepresented.
Yeah, like in academia, right? But so then Harvard Law was pitching her as a Native American
Oh, okay.
lawyer or like
they were pitching a white woman essentially as
yeah, so that's why people were so like. There was one reason why people were so annoyed at that was because I think because then the worst thing is like if you are Native American, you can become. It's easier like there's affirmative action for especially faculty and law, especially in the law. The affirmative action in the law actually is there, so you can. If you're Native American or some other underrepresented minority, you can get into those positions easier than if you weren't. And so people were pissed off if she used that to get to where she was.
Oh,
That was the
yeah,
question.
it's like-
It's like, did you use your fake Native American
They just
ancestry
disproved
to become a professor at Harvard? That was the real.
Yeah, that's a big
It's
question.
like that would be really annoying.
Yeah, that would look.
like the rest of them.
optics
annoying
on
is
that
a
would
nice
look
way of
real
putting
bad.
it.
But that's why people were so kind of. That's like the justified reason why you might want to be pissed off about something like that, beyond Trump's trolling. However.
Can we pull this back from Trump? Can we forget?
Yeah. Well, let's get into your topic, Raj. What did you?
My topic was kind of related to what we talked about a couple of months ago. A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was on the 70% tax that I think AOC proposed, which we used to have, and these are just general kind of. A lot of the Democratic candidates have been coming up with sort of like radical, apart from Joe Biden, basically, coming up with like radical proposals, because there's a large population of people who think that like capitalism isn't working out very well in the U.S. And there's some policy proposals that people are trying to come up with. Elizabeth Warren is actually one of those people. I mean, like, I know I just described all this bad stuff about her, but she has like a bunch of proposals like this too. So I was just wondering what people thought about that, especially the 70% tax.
Go into it a little more about the 70%.
So it would be like a flat 70% is really high taxation rate,
Yep.
Right.
obviously.
Yeah.
And it would be a flat tax, I think, above a certain amount of income. The way I've seen it, so I only know a little bit about AOC's proposal, but the proposals I've seen on paper have been like this super kind of radical taxation that's like anything above $10 million. You get taxed 70%. And the idea behind that is that you think being wealthy is bad in itself. Like you think there's something morally or virtuous, like morally wrong with it, something wrong with like a lot of bad virtues come along with being that wealthy. And yeah, you can justify it in lots of different ways. But that's like a really radical, if you think about that, then you wouldn't get there's no multi-millionaires basically. You stop at $10 million. And,
do you stop at 10 million or like so 70%, right? It becomes really difficult. But like that's like I think
Becomes 70%. No, that's bad.
yeah, 70% is kind of crazy to me, but I think there is a price that you should pay for getting rich in America. Like, okay, you have the freedom to do it, and you did, so help other people. Help this maintain like a better society than the rest of the, But I don't know if. See, I think it all should fluctuate. Back to what I was saying, like last couple weeks ago when we were talking about like everyone's case will be different, right? Like 10 million, like that's to like give everybody over that to like the same thing. Like somebody in 100 million making 100 million is different than 20 million. You know what I mean? So like they would be super punished, and 100 million is like that's still fine. Like we still able to. I don't know. So I think it should be different. Like the taxation should be different for everybody.
Well, you wouldn't get that kind of inequality anymore. People wouldn't be making between 20 and 100 million if you taxed everything over 10 million.
But if you would just now impose it,
of
right?
everything.
Like if there was just something that was imposed like right now, like that would happen, right?
Oh, you mean like billionaires would have like 100 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It would bring everything down, but it would also recirculate
I mean,
that
bring
wealth that
profits
exists
down.
right there.
What they pre-exist. I mean, pre-existing wealth is a different beast.
And that's the thing too, right? Is like, I'm kind of two minds when I think about it, right? Where, yes, I think that there should be something done with wealth above a certain amount. I don't know what that amount is. It could be 100 million, could be like 10 million, could be something. I'm not sure. But the wealth above that amount, yes, okay, let's say that we do usurp it some way. We get it, like it's 50 million, right? We get a happy medium, it's real bipartisan, everybody's agreeing, or at least majority. We do that, taxed above that. But now with taxation at that level, right, that puts a lot of resources in the hands of our legislative, our governing bodies, right? The system itself that we're feeding that money to, and this is just a chicken and egg kind of thing, the system itself that we're feeding that money to now is broken. So if we send more resources to a broken system, how does that distribution not break? So I'm in favor of maybe there should be 70% that goes and gets allocated to other funds and other things, but like some of that should be cut from the military budget. Some of that could be cut from, I just feel like there's certain like taxations and different like cuts that are coming as far as like government funding, but it's like where's the money, right? If we're cutting back on all these educational directors, we're cutting back on all of these creative directors, we're cutting back on R&D, where's the money then? What I'm saying? If it's really that profitable, if it's really that much, where is that money, and why isn't it going to the right place? Yep. So that's the reason why, slight pivot, I like UBI, right? Because instead of taking the money out of like off the top and giving it back to the side for whatever, I mean, or maybe we do both. The government, like we just distribute it to the consumer at the bottom.
What
right?
is UBI?
Universal base income.
Basic
Okay.
income. Yeah. But that is the same thing as well. Like you'd have to have a really high tax rate to fund something like a
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same.
tax
but
And I
it's the
guess
same
as long as it's
Sounds
going,
about
and so I guess
But
that's
you
that's
can't
why I
even-
want to
the-
like it to
you
go
can't
into
assume
that.
away. The problem that you're describing is like a pretty big one. That you just like, if you don't trust the government, why should we give them so much money, even though you want all these good things to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But why assume that when you get the chance to tax a lot of money and send it towards the government, that suddenly the government is going to start doing the things you want it to do?
Yeah.
Instead of like starting a million more wars because it has more money or whatever.
Yeah.
That's like the libertarian point. It's just like you can never. Not only is like there's no reason to presume that you couldn't do that, is that you should just presume that you can't. You can never do that.
Right.
And so you just should not fund the government in general because they'll act in ways that you can't control. There's a principal agent problem. You can't control the way when you give someone money. They can do whatever they want with it. And that's
You said that they were proposing that, like the 70%.
AOC has proposed something like that, but the view that I was describing was different. The view that I was describing is different because people say they want 70% tax because they want to generate as much money as possible to do the sorts of like good things that you might want to do. This other view that I'm describing isn't about generating as much money as possible because 70% isn't going to get you the most money that you want. There's a different tax rate for that. I don't know what it is. It probably differs from country to country. Because you can imagine that like someone who's about to make $10 million but then get hit with a 70% tax might not be wanting to do that much more, might not want to put that much more effort in given what they might get back because they're at the cliff. That's what it is. It's like a cliff, right? So the maximizing tax rate is different. The view that I was describing is interesting because they don't care about how much they generate. They just don't like inequality for intrinsic purposes. There's something wrong with it, not because it leads to bad outcomes, because there's something wrong with it just in itself. And then the second reason why is because you don't want, they think being rich is, there's something not virtuous about being rich. And no one speaks about, no one has that view in America. No one ever speaks about that view, that there's something undignified about being that wealthy. No one has that view here. But there's a view that was, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I
They
just
grabbed
feel
the
like
mic
I
a
would
little
like,
bit when you.
I'd like to see it more like reparations based or something like that. Like, because I feel that it would be okay for certain people to get wealth that have not always been able to acquire a certain amount of wealth, and that the people that have always been wealthy, well, talking about America specifically, they don't need that anymore because none of it has gone to anything that's beneficial for anyone that doesn't look like them, I would say. And I can't speak for every single person, but that's just what it seems like on the outside. So I feel like to see more of a reparations-based system, to get like the wealth into other people's hands to see what they would do with it. The only thing that scares me there, though, is like corruption that would happen and like collusion. If people that started losing their money started joining forces with people that could start getting more money, and then
That's what I was
Yeah,
saying
you
last.
see where the power is, you
Yeah.
grab it, and it would like.
Yeah.
Or you see where the
People get
like
taken
you see
advantage of.
more where the corruption is, right? Where
Right.
it's just like, okay, you give money to people are like, all right, let me backtrack a little bit because I was saying like, because I kind of agree with you when you're saying like, there should be reparations. That's what I mean. Like there should be like a risk, like economic risks, like proposed to like an ordinary like this type of person versus this type of person, right? And they should be taxed based on that, right? Like I don't know if that makes sense, like economic risk or like what someone is subjected to because of his conditions. You know what I mean? Like since black people were disenfranchised, they have a 15% less like potential to be taxed for these things. Like, so I don't know. AI should just think about our government, right? Never mind. Let me stop saying that.
The thing you're describing is just what people think is captured by progressive taxation. Lower amounts of taxes or tax rates for people who earn less money. There's a progressive taxation, or if you just have a flat rate.
Not just because they earn less money,
Right.
Like,
So you're talking about extra, like not just the amount of money they
Not just
earn.
capital.
Like you talking
you know
about
how you can be, how they can
Yeah.
take your
That's what you're
intersectional tax.
That's what you're describing.
basic. Okay, I don't know. You gotta explain that.
Sounds lit.
But you're saying there are some people who are like oppressed in ways that doesn't show up on their accounting books.
Right.
And that they shouldn't have to pay for the government or pay into the government because
If it's
of
not
those
benefiting
things.
Because they're not
them,
benefiting
right.
that system. from
And
that
in
system.
all the ways that
Yeah.
other people are
Yeah.
benefiting from the government,
Yeah.
right?
And so the problem with that is like it would be hard to actually account for unless you do it like ethnicity
What
wise or something
if-
like that.
We provided a social safety net that was basically sort of like an economic floor no one could be below this standard of living.
Yeah, like a safety net, just in general.
But like a holistic, like thought through, like all of your basic needs covered type.
Right.
Like homeless people on the street wouldn't be a thing type social safety net.
Right.
You'd have housing,
Right.
But that's different
food,
from what
basic housing,
That's different
basic
from what he's
food,
describing. Though, 'cause
basic
he's-
health care.
Right, but that's like a package that everyone gets, not like.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. But that's not
And
what he
from
was
there, you
describing.
could build on top of that.
It's also tricky though because with things like that, it's just very systematic. So like even with homelessness, like I used to do a lot of work with the homeless, and a lot of people that are homeless, they know that they're out there and why they're out there, and they don't want to come back.
Yeah, that's like mental, and that's something else that needs to be like kind of census.
Okay,
Like,
healthcare.
you know how like they can go around and like
Right,
kind of
right.
and tell people, like not tell people, but they can count how many people are in the city and blah blah blah. There should be like feedback, like on like, do you feel oppressed? Do you feel this and this is why and why? Like there's no like, how do you feel, citizen? Like worksheet, you know? So if there was that, and maybe more serious than how I put it, but like if there was that, and everybody can like kind of weigh like the hardship, like if you can like somehow like weigh the hardship on certain people and figure out why it's this in this area and like figure it all out, you know, then like you could devise a way to properly like figure out how to receive like funds from them, you know, and figure out a way to give them shit that's not just money. Like I said before, I don't think everyone should just be given money. Like you just give people money and like, oh, your problems are solved. No, they're not fucking solved. Like you still have like your reality still is that, you know, like. I
What
don't,
if you pull an Elizabeth Warren? You're just like, hey, I'm a part of this community and I need X amount of money. We have
the blood work to tell you that you're not and you're bullshitting, and that's not how that works here, right?
I was gonna say that's a slippery slope.
That's not what she did. She was gonna bring blood work up.
Uh-huh.
The Native American,
Yeah.
she brought her blood work up.
Yeah.
The Native
So
American
that's not how
tribe
we
was
do
like,
it.
that's not how we do it.
Yeah, well, boom. Then we'll figure out that's bullshit, and then we'll just go from there.
The
Like,
point that you're making is an interesting one because it's like people's well-being is dependent more on like their social communities more than. So I would be more inclined to be like, instead of like what you're describing is like telling the government how much you are oppressed or not oppressed or whatever, would just be like giving communities enough resources so they can create their own kind of like have a kind of network. That's like the number one, like one of the things that I think is sort of underappreciated, especially now, is that it used to be like communities, like people used to be a part of churches, a part of this, a part of that. Like nowadays, everyone I know is an atheist. They've moved around a lot, blah, blah, blah. They don't really have a community like that, like a community of well-being like that. And that is like a big part of your your well-being as a person that we miss. I actually just make fun of my parents for like sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, you know, you go to the temple, you're like super religious, like,
Right.
I'm not really into that. Everyone in there is kind of alien to me. And that's a loss for us. I think that's a big part of like a person's well-being.
It's
Generating
tricky though
community.
because I guess like for someone like me, I grew up as a Christian, and the more that I started learning history and like understanding what that meant for like the Black community, I was like, fuck no, like this isn't adding up. Like something does not add up.
right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like it's interesting because with things like that, and I'm kind of like delving into another topic, but when you start understanding like who you really are and where you come from and like your actual history, then things start to, your sense of community of course might start to crumble because you know what I mean? Like you're like, what the fuck is going on? This doesn't make any sense. But in that same vein, I feel like there is opportunity to build new community in other ways, you know? Because now all the people that I know that are like waking up and we're like, this does not make sense. Like, where are my ties going? Like, what am I doing? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you start being like, oh, like, wait.
Where them tides?
Let's regroup over here and like figure out like what the root is and like what we actually need to know, like things we weren't taught and like stuff like that. So I think that there's still a way to salvage it. I think the only thing that scares me about that is giving money to groups of communities. Not everyone in the community is capable of doing things with that money that needs to be done. And that's what sucks because it's like, how do you tell exactly? How do you tell someone like, oh, you can't be in charge of this, or like you can? And then it creates weird power imbalance. It's always like, it just feels like there's always never an actual answer because then there's another question.
So
Right.
you keep
There
changing
are answers.
changing
Bring in the
responses.
AI.
There are definitely answers.
Yeah.
I have faith that there are answers.
Robot overlords, huh? Okay.
No, I mean like, let's do a one-off real quick, right?
Okay.
So AI is able to think about what we can think about, right? Turn on the AI machine. All right, AI. What I want you to do today is like figure out how I can properly
AI
govern
can do what we
100
tell it
people.
to do.
Artificial
Right.
intelligence.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about. Okay.
So our limitations are its limitations, in a sense.
Yeah, we can compile
But we-
our
okay, so-
resources into one like.
It's not. I mean, it can come up with. I think what you're describing is like, you can come up. It can come up with decision procedure that you won't understand, but that will get you to between two different things. So like, there's a famous case of like Target sending pre-pregnancy literature to like letters in their like junk mail to a young woman. I think she was like 15 or 16, and her dad got pissed off and came into Target. He's like, "Why do you keep sending this shit to my daughter?" Like blah blah blah. And it turned out that she was making decisions as if she were pregnant because she was pregnant, and they just have a bunch of information. The AI has a bunch of information about pregnant
What
women
falls
tend
under
to
this,
do these
list.
things, but you might not be able to understand what those things are because it's really complicated. But it just triggers it.
just
It's like,
knew.
oh,
It was smart.
this purchase was made, that purchase was made, that purchase, then boom, and they started sending her all the junk mail about
Right.
pregnant stuff.
They figure out how to market
Yeah,
bullshit to her
I
better.
heard
Yeah.
about that this morning on the radio, a different case, but they were talking about how like nowadays when you go into stores, they're gonna start marketing things that like as you're walking through the aisles, like that they know you specifically are gonna want to get.
Right, right.
So like you're in the checkout aisle, and then all of a sudden you start seeing like
Yeah,
Snickers.
that's what
You
it
is.
start
Right.
seeing like. You're like, shit, I really wanted one of those. Like, you know,
Right.
like just.
I expect that in the
different shit.
store though. You know what I mean? Like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm going to the store. They're gonna try and entice
But
me
that's
to buy
still
something.
weird. That's still weird
It's the
because it's like
same
your own
thing,
private,
yeah.
like, that shit's in your mind. So, like,
Yeah.
why are
Yeah.
you now making decisions for me and, like, starting to loop me into shit that I didn't ask for?
Right.
Like, I'm
And it's
just
tough
trying to
because
go-
that ties into the like I referenced a lot, just like in my everyday life, about when the internet wasn't permanent. Right. So when now we get into this point of permanence, like big data, compiling all of this information that surmounts on a near, like at least not infinite, but like way farther out than the horizon that we can perceive of things that are going to influence us. And you see this though in two kinds of ways, right? You see it in one way where it's like it expresses itself in big data, and it seems like a computer thing for us in doing things like that. But recently, I had a situation at like the hospital where like a doctor exuded that same kind of intuition and like completely saved this kid's life. Like he came in, he was just like, I don't feel well, vomiting, blah blah, whatever, this, that, and the third, and like just via like the signs, you know, like that diagnostic kind of idea that we're like regularly familiar with, that diagnostic idea kind of tapped in, and it was like, oh, this doesn't look right. You know what I'm saying? Like what, blah, blah, got a separate scan and found out that the kid was like, had a bunch of crazy tumors, crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like just a lot. And it's like, it's just based on the intuition where it's like, I'm not being given enough of the information technically for the everyday person to see, but my
This is what
practice, you know what I'm saying? And that's what like I feel like highly intelligent people do, is they like cultivate and crystallize like so much advanced information into like trends and data sets where you're like, I can see this before it's happening. So I'm not necessarily too terrified of that in and of itself, because
feel
I
like you
like
can
the
learn from
idea
that,
of big
right?
data. Yeah, maybe not directly influencing what's happening, but I mean, maybe that isn't a, you know, maybe she didn't realize she was pregnant. You know what I'm saying? In that situation where it's like that, and then you see the other end of that too sometimes, where it's like, well, maybe now if we're in a situation like that, well, she'll have the opportunity and the availability to make the choice that she wants to make about that pregnancy, but also the fact that if you wanted to, you can start prenatal care. Right? You can now intervene because of a suggestion that's like being brought to you.
But maybe
But you should
didn't want
consent to that also.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah,
No,
you should also consent to
that's
like
the
having
main
that
thing,
done
though,
too.
is, like,
Yeah,
maybe
if
she
you don't
didn't want
like.
her dad to know that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
The other thing is like it's different. So one of the reasons why we wouldn't question a doctor like the doctor you described, because he's like his intuition is working in the right sort of way, is because he's a doctor and he's like seen lots of this loads of times, like blah 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 blah. The cases I'm describing to you are a machine making decisions that you can't in principle understand because they're so long. Okay, and like it's not like the doctor where you've seen him, he's been working for like years and you kind of have to respect his intuition about this because he's been right before. This is like an impersonal machine that you don't understand how it works.
But is that
And
not better?
Huh?
Is that not better?
I don't know if it's better. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if it's better. And not only is it not better, it's like, it's kind of scary. Imagine that machine. There's a big data medical machine that's trying to do what that doctor did, called Watson, made by IBM. Now imagine that they're successful. Now imagine IBM starts making all sorts of decisions, medical decisions.
Well, if you can back it up, you can check like, okay, if there's one machine, there should be another machine that can back. Like, I feel like there's infinite capabilities, like self-checking, kind of keeping things in check. You know, when it comes
But
to
say you
AI, it
don't
comes to
okay, but say-
machines and
but
stuff
say
like
you don't
that.
understand the
Yeah, but then
decision.
you can learn it though, right?
No, I'm saying in principle you can't understand because it's too long.
Right.
Or like the decision procedure, the logic chains are just like so big that only machines can understand it and humans can't understand it.
Right,
That's
so-
that's a really kind
right,
of
so
scary
break
Well,
it-
is
so
scary
break it
because
up.
then it like go no, but I mean that's the point. I just want to jump back, and you said that it was a person making this decision, but not an impersonal machine. Have you ever met a cardiac surgeon? No, I'm just saying, but like no, they like honestly though, I do think that does happen though, because sometimes I'll sit there in awe of like the actual logic chains and shit that people do go through in those situations, and even though they are doctors, I think that there's a place. And like maybe this is just like a shout out to my future robot overlords, but like there is a place in there where we can kind of have this synergy where it's like it's just a little assistant over your head being like, have you thought about XYZ, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm also watching the same patterns you're watching, and like you know what I'm saying? Personally, if you consent to
Like
your
Cortana.
own something, yes, exactly. You consent. Like I would consent to having an assistant who would watch my trends and let me know. It's like, hey man, like you've been consuming XYZ, you've been, X, like have you thought about this, just to give you like a day-to-day input about how to, I mean, and you should have control over it, but it's also scary because you can't avoid hacking at that point too of certain things.
Think about Niccolo Machiavelli in The Prince, when they're talking about like the prince having to make those decisions where like that it has to make those decisions for the greater good, even though they're evil decisions.
Yeah.
You remember what I'm saying? I'm not too.
But the ways that these are going to be used though aren't like it might be something you want to trade off that a machine can't trade off on. So for example, like probably a lot of AI would be used in making like loan decisions and credit decisions for people, which are generally racist, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's a reason why people of color don't get loans versus white people, especially in the U.S. That's just the way it's worked. If a machine decides, a machine would just have its inputs and then just generate outputs, and the outputs might discriminate in the same sort of way. But if it's like some impersonal machine, you've got people who are more likely to be like, well, that's just you're much less likely to pay.
But I think it's like, what kind of data are you putting into the machine? Is the machine also taking in the fact that all these things have happened? Like, if it can put out such long answers, it can take in such big data, right? Like, it can take in all of these things. Why not? But why not? Like, you expect it. You can. Yeah, if you can teach machine to be right. So this is the thing. Yeah, like you can. This is a completely customizable, like network of biases, right? Like you can definitely
You
think you and me are gonna
by
be the
different
ones doing
companies.
that?
Like my machine, the machine that I create will
think
definitely be
people
different
care
than
about you
yours,
and me
different
gonna
than
be doing
yours,
that?
different than yours, huh? Well, doesn't matter. Like this doesn't matter.
But
Like
that's
so.
the thing, though. We're saying it doesn't matter, but if you think about that, like if we have systems in place that are already set by people that don't consider us in the conversation,
All right.
what
Well,
makes us think
Calvin
that we'll
Klein
be
didn't
able
want
to-
as close to go to black people, but the black people still, they still warm. You know what I mean?
But
Like
at
they're
the
still
same
gonna go to
time,
the
though,
thing. Like
we
it's
don't
not.
get that credit for wearing it. We just are consumers of it, and we just spend the money and do that and go on with it because it's a trend. But we don't get the, you know what I mean? Like
All right,
the
so build your
respect or the-
computer or be a part of the change that puts the right data into the right machine that
You
makes
have
your
to be
decisions.
very
You know what I
critical
mean?
about
Like,
that every single time, though.
Yeah,
Like every single
well,
time.
And
there
I mean, it
has
has
to
to
be
check
like,
itself. I mean, if you have a system that checks that system, that
yeah, if you have another
storage, like,
AI to check that AI, I mean, it's
I
just
think
like
you can,
you're
like-
getting away from why I brought it up, and I think you're doing it purposely.
No,
I think you're purposely doing it. If AI could quantify like the hardships of a certain type of person, like down to the person, right? If it can do so much with its computing power and stuff like that, it could quantify like this is what happened. It can analyze history. This is what's happened. We can like put a value on your hardship, and we can figure out through the systemized network of attention. It's a computer; it can do this.
But that's the
like,
thing, though. Like computers are computers, and then there's people with emotion. You know what I mean? Like that's the only thing that gets.
Yeah,
me,
but it's
'cause-
empirical stuff. That's the point. Like you can actually
how
get the
do
most
you-
truth out of a computer
how-
than against a person. This is what I
How
think.
would you quantify it? Like, give me an example of like. Be
So you know how they went back and like kind of study genetics, and Nat Geo had that one documentary. It was like, yo, we can track like your genetics down to a place. That's like the first time I've ever heard science go, hey, like, yo, we actually can make some dumb shit like not true at all, and we can prove it. You know, like racism, like where this is not like, oh, we can just prove that we all came from one place. That represents what AI can do for me, at least, because it's like, okay, we can like go back and figure out and value and kind of come up to the truth and the reality of these things, and then make it applicable with our output.
But the question you're trying to, the oppression, like trying to quantify oppression is going to be value laden. It's not going to be, you can't just quantify it. You can't, are you describing something like, all right, so if you're a woman, it's plus X points. If you're a black male, plus Y points. If you're a black female,
down
plus,
to your ability to almost have cancer in the future because of like genetic things or like all this other shit. Like it can help.
So much.
I feel like if you
Do you think the programmers
I feel like there's many jobs in the world and people need jobs and people need to sift the data.
Like you started this
I don't think you got my
program.
question. My question was, do you think the programmers can conceive of all of the relevant data?
I think
When
there's
the
a
whole
computer that they
point
can create to make it
is
simple for us. You know what I mean? Like I think.
But you need to make a system to make that system.
If you're
Yeah,
if you're limited, yes, you can build a creation that can go beyond you in certain respects, but ultimately, as far as it can go, it's going to be limited by your limitations. If you're a racist programmer, even if you don't think you're a racist,
Right.
it's going to show up in your program.
Right, but why do you expect all the people doing stuff to be racist? Like everyone's not racist. There are also people like us that want these things to also like.
No, I think
Same way-
AI is
same
a
way-
wonderful idea.
Yeah.
I think that we should pursue it. I just think we
I feel
should
like
also
AI is going to be something
thoughtful
that you
about
can
how
buy.
we pursue it.
I think AI is going to be something you can buy at the store, like you can buy a camera or you can buy something
Yes,
like that in
you're
the
right.
future. So with like everyone's like the open source thing, you know, everyone's going to be able to do shit.
Yeah.
You know, you feel me?
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
would
feel
be
like there's a
into
lot of
this
hope in there.
system if it was like.
I'm just getting really creative
You
about
can say-
AI.
no, I
you know,
feel
what
that.
I mean?
No, I-
really
No, I
creative.
think it's optimistic. I like it.
But it's okay, right? Because it's definitely able to happen.
Let's say you
I don't know.
conceptualize
Oh, okay,
the system,
right.
right? And you set it in place, and then you said, okay, from this day forward, everyone else that will be a part of the system will now be able to be considered. Everyone before that will not be, because we've had to you have to literally, because let's say this AI would have to follow you from birth. Like from the day you are born, this system goes with you everywhere that you go and sees where you look, what you hear, what you experience.
Sounds like some crazy
what you're a
surveillance
part of.
shit.
But that's the thing. Like, how do you decide like who's who and what's what? Because
I just
there's
think-
gonna be people
okay.
who, like, well, you were saying like, okay, white woman you get this, black man you get this, but there's gonna be people that have taken advantage of certain things in their lives, or like done things, you know what I mean? Like done things that they don't actually fit that mold, or like fit to be a person that should actually benefit from whatever they're
Okay,
getting from
then you
it.
can ask yourself, how much do you want government to be in your life?
Not as
how
much
much
as
you
you're
want AI?
describing. Not as
Like-
much as you're describing. Like the AI that you're describing knows everything about everyone.
But
at all
how? But
times.
okay,
Like,
so
that's
so
like-
so either there's either no government like help for all these things that we complain about, like, oh, where's the government here when this is happening, or what are we doing with this when this is happening, or there's just like, okay, the solution, and it's not gonna be fun because it's all the way up your ass and you're not gonna like how it feels, you know what I mean?
Or
Like,
it's not government.
I agree
and
with
so
that.
okay, so like
And
we gotta figure out what you
giving
want.
everyone the tools and the knowledge to like.
That's
learn
not
on
what's
their
happening.
own,
Okay,
their
but in the
own.
land of the free, shit's free to get fucked up for you, regardless of like where you come from. But if you want a real solution, let a machine come in and figure out and quantify your
You would
struggle.
trust the
Why
government
did
to
you-
do that?
Brent, let me put it this way.
Exactly.
Let me cast it in a different light. Let me cast the same question in a different light. What if the benefits of advanced artificial intelligence was...
I kind of want to hear what you were saying though. I'm sorry, cut you off. Were you? Because you were saying that it's gonna get real, like they gotta follow you throughout life.
Like,
they
think
gotta
about that,
follow-
because-
No, let's get back to you. But I'm
I'm sorry, he did this, not me.
It's
It's the first
I
time.
just
floor-
think
the floor is
it
yours.
would be
The floor
like
is yours.
some I am robot shit, right?
Mhm.
And there'd be this one day where the apocalypse happens, it's crazy, and then they've come up with this new system, and then one day they're just like, all right, from this day forward, all the babies that are born will now get this thing that follows
Yeah.
them, or like
It
monitors
seems like
everything that they do.
totalitarian.
Yeah, and it would be some crazy shit.
Straight
But
to
the
tell,
thing
like,
is,
that's-
you would have to have that system in place to be able to tell who actually did what and gets what, and like. Because
like
like
we
I'm
have that. I
thinking,
feel like that
like I'm
happens
just
to
even
them,
thinking
sorry.
about like my mother's life and everything that's happened to my mom, right? And just thinking about like how would someone ever put a price tag, or like any sort of like, here's a monetary thing, here's your compensation for all the fucked up shit that happened to you.
Yeah,
you
but
know
I'm
what
not
I mean?
asking. Well, I'm not asking government to do that. I'm asking government to kind of, when you said reparations, Like, this is what I meant. Okay, so we know through our history, your genetics, and blah, 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 you were in this wave of people that came here at this time, blah, blah, blah. There's likelihood of you doing this, so you live here, and this is what happened in the past, so this could be the repercussions of it now. Like, that kind of all, like,
It's just
summed
so
up
tricky, though, because, like,
and then repaired,
it's
and then...
so tricky, because even with, like...
So there is no
DNA
solution.
tests to be able to be like, okay, where do you actually come from? Those are not real. Like,
Yeah,
those are
well-
not real because there is no way that we're able to track DNA. You know what I mean? Like,
The
shit is
current
lost.
science isn't really there
Shit
yet.
is lost. Like,
You
you
need
can't go
R&D
back
to
500
jump
years and
yourself
actually
into
tell
that.
what part of Africa you came from as a black person here in America now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They
So
just-
you're
they just make
saying-
you think
so you're
that
saying
they know
that,
because they're like, oh, we know who your grandpa might be. We know who
And
your
I've
great
had this-
grandpa might be.
I've had the same
Like-
conversation with Cephas, where I remember I was upstairs at Dom's house, and he came to me and was like talking about like, you need to go back to Africa, you need to find out where you're from, like not like in any sort of like type
okay.
shit,
I was
but
like,
no, he was like no, Cephas is like and then he proceeded to take his shirt off. He said, you see this right here? This means I'm from, and I don't remember where he's from. My bad, Cephas. Like he's like, it means I'm from wherever, blah blah blah. Like I know that my own, and I was like, bro, that's a privilege.
It's a
The
hell
fact
of a
that you
privilege.
know that you're second generation, you know where you came from. That's a privilege.
Why
You know what I'm saying? Like I was just like, and I was like,
why is it
I mean, it is because you have that information. I don't have accurate. I don't have an
What?
accurate.
So you
depiction
can,
of that
so you
information.
can
Like,
be timed, so you can like be like, so you know where. So I
I'm
don't
just saying,
get.
no matter how many blood tests or anything that I take, no matter how much of my DNA I send away, there's still going to be a level of.
I don't
error
get why
and a
it
layer- and a level
matters,
of
though. I don't get why it
suspicion.
matters.
What? Where you're from?
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I don't want to say that I don't think that it does, but I was saying I thought that's what I'm saying. Is
Why
you're
does it
saying
matter?
that it does.
No, I
It doesn't
don't know.
matter.
I
I don't
think
think that it matters.
this is
create a
definitely.
program. You want to create a program.
This
that
is
finds
vital
out
to
where
my
it's from.
end game. Like, just go. Just answer. Why does it matter where you're from?
Yeah,
It doesn't.
You
Diego,
think it matters, but okay.
I
all right, all right.
100% back you up on that claim.
Yeah, it's just it's
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 a
tricky
whole
because
thing.
It's a
you
whole
need-
thing. It's
It's
just
a
like
whole
I spit in
thing.
a cup. Now you know, like it's all. There's a level.
I feel
There
like
is a
there's- I feel
margin
like
of
there's an
error that
actual
exists
proof
in there
in
that
that,
I'm personally not comfortable with assigning myself as so like you know, like yo man, I'm from this island. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm from Maui.
I don't know.
Like,
I got the
what?
Ancestry.com thing, and now people are telling me that they have my data, they can clone me, and they can do all this kind of crazy
Who's
stuff with my
telling? Who's in your
DNA.
ear telling you these
I'm
things?
just saying. I'm just like, hold on. Y'all sound like some haters. Like, I know where I'm. They
a
told
part of
me.
the reparation. If you can't actually trace your data back and you can't actually know your historical information because you know you're a black person living in this country, then maybe you get it. Would
Shit.
that be
I like
AI's
that. I like that.
bureaucracy fucks you over.
In what way?
Because it's like, oh, we can't prove you're actually black. Because we can't take you on the.
It could go
It could be
anywhere.
some bullshit like that. It could be
Right,
some just like.
right.
The thing is, the system is so
Yeah.
elegant. The system we're envisioning is so elegant that there are so many points of failure.
There's 100,000. I mean,
So
there's
many
like
points of
millions,
failure.
billions
And if
of
there's
them.
only
The last time a bunch of people told me I couldn't do something or something was gonna happen, guess what? It happened, and then some.
We're not
So
saying you
let's
can't
see.
do AI.
Let's
We're
see.
saying you gotta be fucking
I'm saying,
thoughtful.
all right, this is what I'm saying is
Think
gonna happen.
about
AI.
every single thing.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like,
Every single
if we want something that's gonna like, if you ever gonna get a shot of reparations for people, there needs to be something that can quantify the hardships that people have been through. And am I wrong with that?
I don't think that you're wrong with that, but I feel like that's a different story. Like if we're talking about a specific group, like we're talking about black people in America.
Black people, any
we
kind,
think
everybody.
About, okay, true, yeah, because I guess, yeah, you're right. I don't know though.
I don't know.
Because
We're gonna
there's
need a
some
big
people
ass
that are
computer,
still
right?
able
You're
to,
talking
like,
about two different things,
pull
though.
from their wealth.
But you're talking about
and
like
I don't know.
you're talking about reparations for past injustices. The intersectionality argument that you had.
She was talking about reparations. Talking about like when we're talking
But that
about
goes
like.
hand in hand, I guess.
But there's going to be a group of people who don't fall into the reparations camp, but are owed compensation on the other
For
camp.
some,
Like
yeah.
poor white people, for example,
Yes.
wouldn't
Yeah,
count
like,
under the reparations camp.
lots of
So which
poor
ones are you
people.
talking about?
But you would be able to like okay, I don't know. Maybe this is going into
Maybe
crazy.
that's why they
Maybe
haven't
going
given
into
black
crazy
people
about this.
reparations yet, 'cause people have had
There's
these
no way-
exact
there's no-
conversations.
there's-
They're like, you know what? We don't
What
even
if-
know how to fucking do
What
this.
if we've? Well, actually, no. I actually really believe in reparations for black people, so that's kind of going to argue against what I'm about to say, which is, what if we just focus on economic status currently and just divert resources
That's
there?
the Bernie
That's one
Sanders
thing.
argument.
Yeah.
That's,
Bernie Sanders.
that's the Bernie
He
Sanders
doesn't know how to
argument.
answer questions.
Wasn't that also the MLK argument? Poor whites and poor blacks getting together?
That's a Marxist argument too. That's a
That
Marxist
is a Marxist
thing.
argument.
Yo.
Marxist thing that you need to stop focusing so much on. You should focus mostly on material well-being and material deprivation, and then you'll
It's
capture a
part
bunch.
of it. It's an important part of it.
Yeah. But you were
Mostly.
saying the reason why it's like why I described your argument as intersectional was that you think that there's extra things that won't be captured in the Marxist or material thing. So it doesn't matter that like a white person and a black person make
I'm gonna get this part
10
of the
grand
replay, I'll be right
10
back.
grand a year. There's something about the black person's experience that isn't accounted for in that 10 grand a year that we owe them for.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay, but that's different. That's
And going forward, we shouldn't like be expecting to take the same across the board because of these things, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
look, the general my general
you know how like art supplies is cheaper for like art students, shit like that.
right. No,
Or
I-
like
but-
AARP affords some sort of specific allowances because you're old
Yeah.
and you subscribe.
But
You know
the
what I
problem
mean?
is, like,
But then it gets back into the discussion about determining what you are at that specific level.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? What you are qualified for, and then you run into the same issue of like, how do you characterize the entirety of a human experience?
Handicap
and then,
parking.
And then characterize it into, you know what I'm saying? Like what's on that list and who's marginalized out of this
Yeah.
list? Who, you know, there's a ton of orphan diseases out there
Yeah.
where people are suffering. You know, it's the same thing with our pharmaceutical companies that like pharmaceutical companies that there's so many orphan diseases that have cures that are just not being made because they
That's
can't be
the
capitalized
the
on.
exact same
Like,
problem that
like-
you'll run into is the one that you're describing. Is like tailoring your policy to each individual is super fucking expensive.
Yeah.
Runs into all kinds of issues.
and then it's the funding
privacy
issue. Like,
issues
where do
and
we
all
have
that
that?
stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like super skeptical of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's like it depends on if you trust, and it just depends on if you trust the system or you trust the operator and the consumer. Because it's like if you give every person a certain amount of money and say, well, they're going to do with this what's right for them, right? You know, can you trust everybody to do that? You know, like, is it based on your, like, now, not just credit score, but like your life score now, this like social score or whatever it is about how much subsidy you're given, like your experience and your intelligence, your education, the access that you have to all those things, like.
I've been thinking about, when I think about trying to at least give people something that they can work with, my whole argument with reparations has been trying to get like black people free education in America at least, because you know in other countries they have free education. So if we're gonna start with something, how about you start giving people free education so that we don't have to hear the argument of they don't go to school.
How about
they don't
like
do this,
how
they don't
about
do
there be
that.
how about there to be, just be like companies in America, or not companies, or just like entrepreneurs in America that like run and just do that. You know what I mean? Because you have the
That
freedom
give
to do
people
that.
free
To give
education?
people free education.
I
There's
feel
like
I should
anybody
get
has the
fucking free
ability to.
education in my school
Like
because
anybody
I
has the
gave them
ability to.
shit.
Okay, so
got
Harvard
shit
and
out of
Brown,
me.
all these like black like Ivy League schools that don't give a fuck about black people. I think.
That's most. I mean, no. I mean,
Yeah.
I go to
That's
the
a lot
University
of
of the Arts
So, like-
here in Philadelphia, where the
I
population.
mean, I'm talking about like
demographic
black,
of people is
like
pretty even,
black.
and
You mean a black college?
we don't get
Yeah,
shit
black
there.
colleges. Like it's you don't get. I feel like you can get education anywhere. That's what
But
I think we had. this
You
You
conversation.
can, but at the same time, like
My
think
bad.
about where we are and in the society and culture and like the year. It's like if you don't have that degree. I mean, not always, but a lot of times, like it is advertised. Like we know this argument that like if you don't have that degree or you didn't get to school, you're not
Yeah.
qualified. Like I've been looking through internships and job opportunities
I think
for
black.
myself.
I think.
And they all say if you don't have this degree, you can't do it. If you didn't go to school, you can't do it. And I'm just like, oh shit.
I
like,
think
It's
black
like,
people
that's
should
the only
be.
way, you know, like, and there's so much outside of that too, with like credential programs and things like
Right.
that, where it's just like I only went to school for a very succinct amount of time, but the majority of my training that's been useful to me that I'm actually applying has happened after my graduation
Right.
date, you know, and like no one cares what grade I got in inorganic chemistry, in
True.
neonatology. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? It's like it's all exemplified by my actions and everything afterwards. But then you also run into the corruption issue of like who you know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
does once again, even if you have that printout, even if you understand what's going on, this is like
Right.
tying it back into like yourself as a whole. You have your readout. Who says that you trust that readout? You know what I'm saying? Like my BMI, like on the scales based on two variables is in a level that's different than my own bone density,
Yeah.
right? So it's like if I'm being treated and assessed and looked at as something based on any sort of number, and no matter how nuanced the system is, what you identify with, you know what I'm saying, and how you go about your life is going to be different than that sheet of paper. You know what I'm saying? And some people are cookie cutter. Some people might have like a 90% match to their, you know, all to the output that they have, but some people it's probably 2, you know?
I'm always have the radical idea.
No, I feel like I'm very radical as well. I just feel like it's hard to like Because even now, I'm starting to like almost debunk my own thoughts of like reparation and like who should get what and like how much. Because it's just like, how are you ever able to quantify what anyone should get? Because I mean, like Native American people got reparations and they still got fucked over. Like they got some sort of money, they got land, but it was like, did they actually? Like, how do you actually justify?
And do they know what to do with
everything? Like, I feel like maybe if all the white people were sent away, or like everyone that came, you know what I mean? Like,
say it louder.
That's like different. If all of the white people were sent away.
But
Like,
we were talking before the
but
podcast. Like it's not just
but
white people, right? It's like
not.
everyone
It's
has.
not,
It's like human
But I think
beings. At the end
though,
of the day,
I think though we are now living in a society where we can see the effects of whiteness and what it has done to the whole entire world. Like literally the whole entire world though. That's like some crazy shit. Like to think about the color of someone's skin has now been able to set in different systems and powers that they control. Like there are Japanese people that want to be lighter every day. There are black people that want to be lighter every day. There are just standards of beauty. There are standards of this, that, smartness, like blah, 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 blah. Like every single thing that not every single thing, but so much of how we operate today is literally based off of whiteness. That's fucking crazy.
Which is a concept.
It is a concept.
Which is deeply problematic.
Yes.
So dealing with the concept is the fundamental problem.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. It is.
So maybe we can send the concept away, maybe not the people.
I feel that. So then how do you do that? How do you
That's hard
start
as fuck.
generationally?
Education in time, I guess. Like I don't. It's
Education's a huge
I think about
part
that all
of
the time.
it.
Though, is it like how do you get an idea not only to take but to stick?
This
right?
jumps right into my topic,
like,
guys.
How do you get an idea not just to start but to stick? Because you could say, you know what I'm saying, we run into this issue now where things are rapidly changing, and I think we're at the headbutting point now of like things are rapidly changing. You're gonna have to change and learn, and hell fucking no. You know, I think that most of the people nowadays, just with technology and the way that we live a life from 2019 and forward, change is a part of it, right? But now we're operating in a system that's governed by people who that wasn't always the case. And now inherently you're fighting against the time ideology. You're fighting against like just a completely different entire era that has so much in it. How do you change that? I mean, it goes into education. You have to people have to grow up learning and having these concepts. They have to, you have to fund,
Sorry, I need to have
you know
a
what I'm saying? You need to just fund something that instills that carries that, not just from where we are, but like where we're starting.
But I think that we have evidence historically with many different things. Like I just was learning about how like at one time, not at one time, trans people have been around historically for forever, right?
Yes.
But when colonialism happened, there started to be an erasure of them because of certain religious beliefs or certain, parameters that were set, blah, blah, blah. So, like, even thinking about that, it's like, we know that people were out here living and doing things and, like, being cool, but then at a certain point in time, things started to change, and we had this one group of people that started dominating and doing different things that now people can't live freely,
progress isn't linear. Like, there were people in the past that were cool as fuck with trans people.
Right.
Like, honored
Exactly.
trans people.
That's what's crazy though,
Right.
but you can look and see when the time shift started to happen and who came into power.
I mean, you can see
and
in American history
And
how
this-
that's happened with blackness now.
Yeah,
true.
true.
Because it's like if you go back to the Moors and you go back, like there was a time in which even in this country, as regardless of anything, and you could say that even there's a renaissance of that happening now if you look at what popular culture is considered. Maybe we don't get all the credit for it, but there was a time in which it's like blackness was honored.
Yeah.
It was and they're like, okay, you have the exoticism and everything that way, but it was truly honored and understood, and people had their place. Like
Definitely not pick your brain about that because like I'm ignorant of that. So I got to hear more about that. Do some wiki searches and shit.
I just think it's one of those things that we have like I'm okay. We have the historic evidence to like look at things and be like, oh shit, like many different groups of people, not just black people. There are just many different things that were affected by this one concept. And like getting to the root of like where all those things started and like how to actually now unlearn, I guess. I guess that's really what it is. There is much to learn, but there's also a lot to unlearn because there was already a certain way of living, and then we learned certain things, and then it changed the way we thought and operated. So.
So you might been paying attention to Kanye West recently?
Kanye's always up to something.
So I think this is a solution for like people who have tribes that think the same way about the same things. that don't believe in the way that, you know, people have been treating them or blah, blah, blah. This is my radical idea, and it kind of lines up with what Kanye's doing right now, I think, right? Why not get together, invest in some land, go somewhere else, create a product, put out that product, you know, survive as a place and a people on your own, outside of the land, outside of like the norm, with all the crazy pressures and standards and shit, like education standards and all that bullshit. You can provide a life onto your own, with your own product, with your own education, with your own people, with your own ideologies, with your own religions, right? With your own music. Outside all the bullshit.
So you're proposing a cult?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe like a compound,
I was
like
a
a.
part of a cult once.
Oh shit!
Talk
wait.
about that. Wait,
Yeah.
It's
hold up.
self-sustaining.
If you're
It was
I
like,
mean,
I think
yeah,
it
if
was
you
like
were okay,
I think it was just like a religious cult.
Did it work?
It almost did. I
Right.
know people that are still in it. No, but it didn't.
Right.
What is working?
is
Is
that?
working not being able
Working's
to have
like
your own.
no,
train
it's
of
like
thought?
it's
'Cause
like
that's what happens.
okay. How
I know
about this?
people that
What
don't have
if
their
I
own train of
said?
thought.
What if I said like, yo, I just wanna like not work at any other jobs, make this one thing, or make these things that someone can teach me how to do. We all think that, you know, we should watch TV all day, smoke weed, and eat cookies. You know, let's go over here, do this, and perpetuate that lifestyle.
But people do that every day.
Yeah, that you can do
That's
that.
already
here.
happening.
No, but I'm
Yeah,
talking
you
about
have
like
the
way
freedom to do
crazier.
that.
I'm talking about it's like way crazier.
Then shit would be more fucked up
You
because I
can
feel
still do
like
that now.
I don't.
You can-
Yeah, people.
I'm going to middle of
wait,
like,
hang
New
on.
Mexico and do
Can I
that.
just interject here?
This is
That
what I
is true,
think. This
yeah.
is what I
Interject
think
here,
is a
'cause
solution for like this. Give me 1 second analogy, right? This I think is a solution. We all complain about, oh, we should make them go away. We should make them stop. Like, oh, all this is this. It's like, nah, yo. We understand how to play the rules. We've been here for a while. We're not treated the same. We're not treated right. Let's put our forces, let's put our money, our forces into this other thing. Let's stop selling it. Like I saw, I'm going to point right at him, Donald Glover. He did this, I'm not saying nothing wrong with doing this, but he just put out a shoe with Adidas. Donald Glover can do anything in my mind. He's done so many things. He's a
Very
rapper, blah, blah, blah. He can just do anything, right? Why not start your own company where you can put out these shoes organically, like intrinsically, and just do this shit yourself? You know what I mean? People are selling their culture to Adidas, to Spotify, to Netflix.
But
like
some people don't
Beyonce
wanna
just
do
did this
that
thing on
work.
Netflix.
I
She
don't
could have
know
put it
how
on
much money is
Tidal.
behind that shit, though. We
I'm
probably
just
don't
saying.
know everything that goes into that shit.
Jay-Z knows. He bought Tidal. He's perpetuating Tidal. Why didn't Beyonce go to Tidal with Homecoming instead of Netflix? You know what I mean? Stuff like this. We have these platforms perpetuated for black people, right?
Just music? Or is it also?
No, they have videos
No, they have
on
video.
there.
Yeah, the
video.
Lemonade
Because
dropped
they-
on
yeah.
underneath the visual project.
I don't
drops.
know.
This is like, so we talk about, oh, like what we don't want to this, we don't want to that with these people who don't respect us. So people are racist. Okay, how about we stop talking to the racists then, right? Let's go somewhere else. Put out this culture this way with each other,
But
perpetuate
then
each
you
other.
forget about racists, and then you have people that are misogynists, or you forget about
All
misogynists.
right, well, that's
and you have
everywhere.
people
That's
that are-
everywhere. That's
Yeah,
everywhere.
but that's the thing, though. There's still always going to be like some variable that's like in the mix. So it's like, how do you figure out who are the most ethical?
I'm trying
and-
to solve the problem of dealing with the white people, and I think Kanye's kind of doing that.
I feel
having
like
this
no,
kinda-
he's not. I feel like when I look at that, I see someone who was not able to just do it on his own and do. He had that.
Yeah,
He
he has a
literally,
lot
from
like
the beginning, Kanye West had the ability to do what he wanted and move in the way that he wanted. That he had us on his side, and then he started dipping into waters and doing weird shit that he had no business doing. He always had the support of black people. He had that. He had the support of other people as well. And then he started to do things that just really did not match up with what he had talked about for years and years and years. And I totally
I think
understand
I don't know.
sometimes
I don't
having
know.
to be like
I don't know
a
about all
wolf in
that,
sheep's
but I'm talking about
clothing.
what he's doing like right now. You know what I mean? With the
But
Sunday
even, like-
service
With Sunday
thing,
service?
with the he has like
It
the
looks-
slide
it
in
looks
Calabasas.
like
He's doing like
he
his own thing.
is
I think that's
being hypocritical. It looks like he's just now trying to tread on. He's like trying really hard. It seems like now he's
It
like,
does
oh, I
look like
really
he's trying
fucked
really
up,
hard.
and now I'm like trying as hard as I can to get back to a culture that like. Even with that, you're doing church service.
But
bro.
what if
Do
what
you
if
get
what if
church
okay
is to,
okay
like,
okay
black
so
people?
what if that's what he thought was the thing to do? What if that's what if Kanye's been doing what he thinks Kanye should be doing this entire time?
Then that's on him, but it still looks fucked up to the rest of the general
Okay,
population.
right,
who are
right,
already
right,
on his
right,
side.
right, right. I understand that, but there are people that fuck with Kanye and what he's doing and how he's been doing it. So I'm talking about when people go off and they just like create like a thing under their own ideology, under their own volition, under their own whatever, even though it may sound fucked up to everybody else. Culture usually sound fucked up to everybody else anyway, right? Like,
I don't know. Like,
freedom
you
to do
literally
that.
married Kim Kardashian, who's the epitome of like appropriation, who's the epitome of like being born into money, doing things that are just like, you know, it's just like, how do you justify those things though? How do you literally?
If you can sell a T-shirt for
That's your
if you can
family.
sell a T-shirt for $300, then I think you're doing something right.
But he did that
You're
because
doing
people
something
already loved him
influential.
before that.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I mean, it was built on a bunch of different things, and it's
You're
like it all
selling a
depends.
good product.
I mean, it depends
It's
about
just
it depends about the
self-sustained.
path
Is any
You know what I
something
mean?
that
always
something
acceptable?
takes. You know what I'm saying? Like it depends on like the path. The
You
path
had
that
an
something takes
interjection.
does matter. Go ahead.
Oh, I forgot my interjection, homie. But I'm on some shit right now. You said they're doing something right, right?
Right.
That's a universe of possibilities. Is everything that's possible okay? Is everything that's possible good? Should it be done?
No, but it's like
Is
if something
appropriation
works,
allowing you to sell $300
also-
T-shirts okay?
And who is the main consumer of his product? Is it white people that are able to afford that product? Like today when I was out, I seen like 4 white dudes with a Yeezy jacket on. Like who is able to actually consume it and get it? Like is that more of his market? Like
I'm talking about like the ability, because I know I can't sell a $300 T-shirt.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Not
So
yet.
like, right. Let's go. No, but still, but like he can do that. So I'm like even though it's like not that I like the T-shirt or like the color or like anything about it, but the fact that someone was able to do something, I'm not gonna hate on that. The fact that somebody can appeal people together and kind of put this like sort of like the fact that you can continue, like the fact that Kanye's been continuously being Kanye this whole time and still doing like kind of dope shit to me. Like even if you don't like Kanye, the Yeezys look dope. Like sorry, and then the fact that he's gotten to a price point where people are being able to afford them is dope. I can't be mad at that. I'm peeping and tracking the trajectory off of like pure like, oh, couldn't do it before, but now I can't. Even though I don't like how he's going about it, there's many other things I don't like about Kanye. The fact that he had to go through Adidas to do what he's doing makes me not like Kanye a lot. You know what I mean? Like, but to
But don't
the
you
main
think-
objective,
You brought up Donald Glover and said
Brought up
that
Donald
he
Glover,
went through-
yeah,
he
exactly.
had it. So
Exactly.
Kanye had that. If he
he
wanted
had
to,
that,
he
but
could
he
have went about it
did.
and did that.
Exactly. So
So-
there's a lot of things I don't like about Kanye, but the fact that somebody's doing these things, yo, is
But-
dope to me. You know what I mean? And the fact that somebody can like kind of pull, like was all up in it and then had to pull out and can kind of do something over here that's more genuine, that's more like dope. Like I like that.
But I like
Kanye
seeing
right
it
now.
if it's like, so Beyonce with Ivy Park, okay, that's something. Like, that is her own thing that she has that belongs to
Beyonce
her.
with Ivy Park
with-
and Homecoming though.
Yeah, okay, cool.
What is
But,
that?
okay, Kanye West with Adidas and every other thing that he's with, and that's not his own. He had the ability to. We would have all just bought his shit because it's Kanye West and he's lit. At the time, now you have to
I
go
think
through
Kanye
this,
has the
this,
freedom.
and
I
that.
think Kanye has the freedom to do these kind of crazy like political things, like when he's talking about being out with Trump and doing all this crazy shit with Trump. And like, yo, people still buying this shit, and they can buy this shit because he's
But
good at
who
these
is
to
the
do it.
consumer?
Like,
Who is the main consumer
everybody's
of
a
the
consumer,
product?
yo. You gotta admit
Everybody,
that. You
but
gotta
I
admit
want to see.
everyone's buying Yeezys right now.
I feel you, but I want to see
Yo,
clear
everyone's buying Yeezys
demographic
right now.
evidence of who is the main
Well, of course,
consumer
the
of his
people
product.
who main consumers are streetwear white people. But that's not an
Okay,
argument that you
so-
can make specific by on who fucks with Kanye. That's not what it is. Like
But
people
I
are gonna
mean,
buy
I'm
it
not-
because
But
they're
I
like,
mean, yeah, it's like if you're thinking about his, I mean, does he have?
I'm
does he have
saying
an
I'm able to
obligation
take my 3
to-
people over here and make this donut and sell it to people, even if they don't, and if they don't fuck with me, right? And he did, right? That's what I'm saying. This
I mean,
is
and
what
that's the
I'm
thing.
saying.
What people
it's-
did he take with him?
Hmm?
What people are you talking about? Who did he take with him?
So Kanye bought this like play like this like land in California. This is me, my radical idea at the end of the day. Sorry to get everybody so riled up about some crazy shit that's probably not even based in reality, but
I don't think it's that radical. Just before you say it, it's like you're talking about building a factory.
yeah.
somewhere.
Well, he's
You can do
yeah.
that now, any way you want.
But just like the way he's going about, he's like he has a big percentage of the culture. Like, you know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
like when you
That's
think
more
about
like
a lot
his
of black
influence.
people, like his influence. But I mean, and people are looking for a solution, a way out of like the ideology of like being like an oppressed black person.
But that
being,
is
like, an
the
oppressed-
ideology you're arguing against. But a lot of the people that you're describing are like worried about, upset about, is this kind of like super ultra capitalist American ideology, which is just like, you know what, fuck you, I'm gonna go over there and build my own factory, make my own shit, and sell my own shit. And that's why people like, there are some people who would say that that's not a radical idea, that's just literally buying into the American dream like 100-fold, basically. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, you're saying like go somewhere random and do it, or you can just go buy a factory in Northeast Philadelphia and make something and sell it.
Wait,
too.
I got one thing to say. We can ignore it. Y'all, you see Guava Island yet?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
You?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. You?
What'd you
I
think
haven't
about
seen
it?
it. No.
It's fucking dope. They definitely released it 1 year later than they anticipated when they first started making it.
Yeah, I was like,
That's what you told me when you
like
watched
you
it.
could have just did it when you first dropped the song. Yeah.
Just saying.
I've seen it. I'm in for it. I haven't seen it. I'm about to
It's dope. It's dope.
take a quick aside.
But that one scene right before This Is America's music video dropped,
Stop.
where he's just like, this fucking fake Islander accent, Donald Glover's like,
Have you seen Guava Island?
Yeah, I saw it.
So
Yeah. Any
that
place.
your argument makes sense on Guava Island, doesn't it?
no, it doesn't.
Doesn't
That
make
was
sense
Donald
in a-
Glover's point, Guava
and-
Island. It doesn't.
But Donald Glover was saying like he wants to get to America so he can build his own factory.
No, he wasn't saying that. Some dude talking to Glover,
Yeah.
Donald Glover was saying that.
But you could.
And Donald Glover was saying the opposite, and then the music video for This Is America dropped.
Okay.
Where he was saying any place that you have to go,
Oh
where
yeah,
you-
that dude
in
is
order
you're
to
right,
get
right.
rich, you have
That's
to
right.
make someone else richer,
right, that's
is
right.
America.
Right, that's right.
And the
I
other
don't
dude was like,
think
no,
that's
I'm
it.
save
With
my
that.
bread
The
and
thing
go
is-
to American
No,
shit.
I don't know.
I
So
didn't
the
agree
thing is
with
like, at least, but on the island that they're on, Guava Island, you can't even start your own factory. You can't even. You don't have the opportunity to make someone
It's
else
a
rich
monopoly.
unless
Yeah.
you, like, work in that factory for that
It's
guy.
a
or whatever.
monopoly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have
Uh,
one main export
Right, but
and
that
then
kinda-
natural resources for survival.
Yeah, base level and then one and then a focus.
Let's
level.
just say I didn't like Guava Island too much.
That's okay.
No, you can have it if you
Can
want.
I have that?
Yeah.
You pass it to me. I've been looking at it for like at least 20 minutes, and I was just like.
I always come with the
no,
snacks, you
Put it
know,
on
like
my
it's,
phone. It's like,
No,
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 no.
no, no. I don't want that.
we can stop talking about Kanye.
Yeah, I just feel like for me, I always thought he was so dope, and I just as soon as he married Kim Kardashian, well, like he was doing other shit, but as soon as he did that, I was just like, you really don't give a fuck because you know you were having conversations about people like that, and now you're literally married to her.
anything to
Get
do
the fuck out of
with-
here.
I don't think.
Come on,
You
the
can't say-
one
you
of the
can't-
biggest if I could draw out a diagram of cultural appropriation, this bitch would be at the forefront.
Bro, look.
Do not play with me. It
Look.
would be different. Look, if she used her platform and did something with it and actually helped other people that did not look like her, instead of taking money from them and just trying
You can
to
go
look
on
like
Fashion
them.
Nova and get a dress for $23.
Okay, and fuck Fashion Nova. Get the fuck out of here. But I'm telling you.
For women that look just like her, who
But-
looks like her?
other
Black people.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
boom.
But she's trying.
Big
come
lips,
on.
fat ass, big
But
thighs.
she did
got
that,
Fashion
but she's
Nova
not trying to help
on
black
point for black
She
people.
know what the fuck she's doing.
No, I don't think it's
play.
personal. I don't think it's
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
personal.
That is-
It's
Hang on,
hella
hang on.
personal.
Wait, hang on. I'm on your side on this. Describe the looks like one more time.
Go ahead.
Just do it one more time.
Said big lips, a fat ass, and big thighs.
What skin tone?
It doesn't matter what skin tone.
You sure?
She's
What?
not. She's not selling makeup
sure?
on Fashion Nova.
My
Because
sister
she ain't
is
she
doing
ain't out
it.
here caping for black women. I don't think she's doing that.
But
Well, she's
why?
not a black
Well,
woman.
but
She's
she's
not.
Armenian.
She's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
She's
she is.
part
Yeah,
Armenian.
she's. Why does she
She's
have
white.
to? Why does she have to
white
find?
woman.
So why does it matter? Like I don't get. She's made black kids. I don't get why.
What?
Like why?
Get out
Ah.
of here.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta.
That's
about?
that's
Thank
kind
you,
of.
everyone, for
What are you
doing
talking
this.
about?
Okay.
Whoa, what
Black
did I do?
kids.
What did I
Like,
do? Did she
it's
not
not
make
you.
black kids? If they're
But
not
it
white, they're
doesn't
black,
matter.
right?
She
Isn't that what
doesn't-
they
But at the
say?
same time, does she?
They're
have to
mixed-
give
mixed
her
people are
blood-
black.
Does she? She does not have to go through the fact that there are little black babies, little black boys.
All right,
walking
people
down
will
the street
hate
every
Kim
single
Kardashian
day.
for whatever. I don't care if you
There
hate
are
Kim
black-
Kardashian.
No,
It
I
doesn't
don't-
matter. I don't
Come
care. I don't care about
on.
Kim
Kardashian.
Kardashian.
Getting
I
shot
just
just
don't
because the
think
way
that
they
that
look
doesn't,
by the.
like-
Come on.
I don't get. I
Her
don't
kids
get.
don't have to go through that.
But they will have. But her kids will experience racism because they're not white.
At the same time, though, there is a different level. She has done something to put them in a different place.
So Kanye shouldn't have had kids with Kim Kardashian. Like, what you're
Well, no, I
saying?
just want to
mean-
see more action as far as her. Like, if we're going to give her that. You know what I'm saying? Like if someone's gonna give her that like passion, that idea, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like you can make these decisions, or you can have like Fashion Nova marketing to that type of like environment or that type of person. You still need to have contributions that go in that same. You know what I'm saying? It's a pendulum.
I don't get it.
The amount of benefit that you have should come back.
The amount of you should pay for the amount of influence you worked hard to get.
It's understanding your privilege.
Yeah, like as far as like.
So what is she supposed to do? What's the solution?
Even me, I'm a light-skinned mixed race person.
Right.
I don't even like using the word race because you know white people.
I agree.
I am a light-skinned Black and Japanese woman, right? I have to operate in this world understanding that I have certain privileges just because of the way that I fucking look.
Right.
But at the same time, I use those to help other people that do not look like me because I understand the importance of that. She does not do shit like that. She's not waking up every morning and being like, I know what I look like and how much I have and what privilege I have and possess. What the fuck am I going to do with it today? She does not do that.
But how do you know she doesn't too?
Because
Like this, like.
Let me fucking see it then. You're a fucking celebrity. You put everything else in the media. We see your daughter's diaper change. She got the new fucking shoes. She got the new hairstyle. Let me see something that.
I feel like she's doing. What she can do for people that look just like you.
No.
For mixed people.
What?
Of different.
No.
Yeah, she is. I think she is.
What?
I think that that's the thing. I think that.
Sorry, is that funny?
I think that if she is doing it, then it's like I think
she is.
I think it's difficult to say. I think it's difficult.
I don't think she's. I don't think she's
I want to
I
pause.
don't think she's done anything wrong. Honestly.
What part of this experience can you just fall butt first into? No pun intended. Literally, no pun intended.
Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I'm 7 years old at heart, but right the fuck now, I'm like, I don't know, serious. What part of that experience can you just like do zero effort and kind of claim wokeness and progressive thought over? And what part of that experience do you actively have to be thoughtful about?
There is a way to literally just understand history and the way that things work, and then understanding your role as an accomplice wherever you are. We all at this table have certain privileges. Everyone in the world, no matter you, everyone has a privilege, right?
Yep.
It's about understanding what that privilege is and what you can do to support or be an ally or bring awareness. There's shit that people do not talk about every fucking day that if someone just brought up, some other group would be benefiting from it. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally that simple to just be like, hey.
But you have. But so how many people do you hate for that very same reason? How many celebrities do you hate for that very same reason?
I'm not gonna. I don't. The ones that I really do not appreciate and like, I guess for me, have to do with like my own experiences. I'll look at people that share the same intersectionalities as me, things like that. Or maybe I don't. I think it just all depends in the situation. For someone like that to make that much money and have that much of a pull in society right now, if Kim Kardashian dropped some shit on her Instagram or did this, people would flock to that shit. To know that she could drop one line and be like, hey y'all, maybe we should really think about the way that this society
maybe that would be like maybe if Kim Kardashian
crazy.
did like that, like super, like what if she did exactly what you're saying that she did, you know, things would be like different, or things would be, I don't know, like why, what's wrong with people? So this is part of like the tax. Remember I was saying like, so people need to be like tax appropriate to like things that are like happening to them, or what conditions they're in. Like, so if you're rich and you have certain influence or pull or something like that, is there a quota how much you need to like be aware or show awareness of certain issues to make this much money? Or is like what I think. So where is that?
I don't think that that's the worst idea, though.
But
right?
okay, so
like if you think about the people
charity,
that are the people that are you're above you're above 10 million, right? Part of the tax that you incur from being above this level, and obviously that does create the cliff and people not trying, blah blah whatever. But I mean, if even holding people accountable for where they are and the ways that they've taken advantage of their privilege up until this point, you now have to have that be a part. We did the same thing with the tobacco company. Where do you think the Truth campaign came from? Like, it's just a similar. It's a tax on the entirety of who and what you are. Now that does, it does put people in an odd place about being told what to do. You know what I'm saying? And then you have this overarching thing. But it's like, I think that there might be a little bit of a sweet spot there if we can agree upon a certain subset or base of what it is that, like, I mean, that's
because the thing you're describing is like taxing, like it's a value question. It's not like taxing like tobacco companies because smoking causes cancer is a sort of thing that people would agree on because it's fact based. The like you're describing like maybe an oppression tax or something will be value based, and even though you might think it's fact based, lots of people won't think it's fact based. You won't get
Does
the
that
same.
make it not a fact?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. But does it make it a problem for taxation? Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Like a political thing? Yes, it does.
Maybe
That's
this is a stretch, but what about the VAT?
The what?
The VAT?
The value added tax?
Yeah.
How would that apply in this situation?
I mean, they recognize that waiters and waitresses do a particular service and get underpaid for it, and they legislate a built-in tax that goes directly to support them, the VAT.
You're talking about like in the EU?
There are a lot of countries that do this.
VAT just means that you're taxing it's like a sales tax. You just
Yeah,
get.
yeah.
Okay, but that's how would that work here? I don't understand.
Basically, it's an example of recognition of oppression that is mediated by legislation that says, hey, let's do a X% like marginal tax rate on a certain type of transaction that affects these marginalized people, and then make sure the funds go directly to them. In this particular case, in their direct paycheck.
All right.
I don't think it should always manifest in extra money. You know what I mean?
Maybe not.
It's like
Maybe
Respond to the needs.
Maybe it's like black people born here and here between these years, and like somewhere in Virginia have like 10% off at Men's Warehouse. Right?
Oh my god.
That
It's
is
like
that algorithm that has
On
I thought
Monday,
about it in
on
my
Monday.
head.
Like,
Just like,
right.
just-
That's how it would manifest,
like
right?
so many different like
Who even
subgroups.
goes
of,
to
like,
Men's
how do you, like,
That's
Warehouse?
how it would manifest. That's how it would come out.
What? Like-
And you would get an email like, yo, bro, like you qualify for 10% off Men's
That's
Warehouse
AARP.
every Monday.
That's tough.
That is ARPs, but like so many ARPs. AI will figure it all out, yo. I promise y'all. I promise
he's getting
you.
AARP
But okay, let me say this though. I feel like I am okay. So one thing, my name means wisdom, right?
Mhm.
So I think that I have the type of life. And I'm just speaking for myself here personally.
Here we
I
go with
have
the
this
bomb.
crazy, weird moral compass that like leads me to just believe in and understand things that maybe not everyone else does or like knows. And I feel like that's significant to every single person. Like we all have things that we understand and like see that we are just like, if people just did this one thing, like wouldn't this one thing happen? So I guess like I can't really criticize like what Kim Kardashian does or what Kanye West does. I don't know them personally. I don't know, but I just think that I see things from a scope
Right.
just because of the way that my life is, the people that I'm around, the things that I've learned, the
Right.
things that I've been able to consume, which makes me
Right, so are you
feel
saying that you
believe-
can't be mad at her for being like not as awoke as you are?
I mean, I guess in theory, I guess I can't be, and I don't know if it's everyone's
But this is
job.
the thing. Maybe
and that's what sucks.
maybe her not being that awoke is what got her into the fame that she's got now. You
That's
know
true,
what I mean?
but you still, I think, at the end of the day,
Yeah,
though,
fame
you
'cause
still
she
need to
fuck
be
Ray J,
accountable
right?
for
It's
that.
not-
True.
Didn't your
Let's
mom hear
not
that?
forget that. If we want to talk
That's
about
how
her
started,
paying
and
Ray
then,
J
yeah, like, it's-
for paying Ray J's dick for
But
like her
still,
fame,
like,
we
you know what I
can talk
mean?
about that.
Sometimes I have to like take a
But I
step
might
back
give
and
her-
think, oh wait, like not everyone is like me and thinks the way that I do because I go out of my way to learn certain
Yeah.
things and understand certain things
Yeah.
so that one day I can change shit like that so that it's not.
I mean, it's dope
always
when
that
it's
way.
dope when people do that, like Beyonce, right? She like
Right.
I watched the documentary with her and Homecoming. That made me like, I don't know. I didn't see how powerful she was, you know,
Yeah.
like
I was
to
like,
have
oh,
like
shit.
I'm like yo, and then
Let's
that like
go.
made me like extra like. So when it's like that, it's very good. You
Right.
know, you're right when you say she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that,
Right.
and blah blah blah. But when they do that, that's what creates that culture. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That like the nurturing culture that like makes black people think that okay, that we should actually fucking stick together and like respond the same way about these things and these oppressions and shit like that. So it's good when that happens, and we should pay attention to that shit when that happens. But I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I'm also saying that like when you're able to do that, put it on a platform. When you're able to cause that like kind of like reaction for me, emotional like that emotional reaction I have from watching that. Why can't it be on something that's gonna benefit like
But also
black people,
but maybe
title,
what
put it-
we
I wasn't on
understand,
title.
but that's the thing. So black people might be the main consumers of title. What if Beyonce's motive was to get it into the hands of other people so that they could get this message in a
go
different
to
way?
title for it?
I feel that, but at
White
the same
people.
time, like
I mean, if
People-
you,
not all
you
white
have to
people
make
are
the
gonna
you have
go.
to make the platform available for that though. And if it doesn't, I mean,
We all
just-
went to
not
get Life of
everyone's-
Pablo when it came out on title, did we not? When it came out for a week, it was like on title for a week first.
I guess I did get title.
Yeah,
too.
we all ain't
I
got
did
title
get
for that
But
shit.
maybe for her it was like, you know what? All y'all need to see that I was the first black woman to headline Coachella, and I need y'all to know now.
Who cares? Coachella's like.
Yeah, but at the same time,
Coachella's kind of tough for me. I mean, I feel like just from its like origins and like who funds it. And,
I
like,
know.
Diego's been
but
telling me about
think
Burns
about
this whole
how
time.
lit-
Right, like a little
But if
burn.
you're that lit, like she's literally one of the greatest entertainers
Yeah.
of all
Yeah.
time, and she's still young. She's not Diana Ross. They
No.
didn't ask Diana Ross to come the fuck in. They had her. She could have still, but you know what I mean? Like she's
Yeah.
relevant. She's
Yeah.
here. She's able to do it, and they did not invite her until 2018, and that shit's been going a long ass time.
But do we care about these? This is what I'm
We
saying.
don't,
Why
but at the
not
same
create
time,
these
it is
platforms?
significant because we see the people who are the main consumers of things like that. We see who are
Okay,
the
so
people
change.
who.
So starved. If they're not. Why are we? Why do we care about feeding people culture? Like
That's why I'm
one of the
struggling
only
with
thing
this
black
world.
people have is like for some reason it pisses me off a little bit. It's kind of rap music and R&B and hip hop. Like we're so prideful. Like these are the things that represent our culture. Like and it's like fashion and all these other kind of like pop culture things right now. All right, so like, all right, cool. I'm glad you said that because I kind of want you to tell, like, in your opinion, tell me, like, what are the like, I don't want to say this without being like offensive because I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know how to
You're
say.
saying what are the things that we know that
Right,
black people have
pride. What do black people in America pride themselves on? Like, what do
There
we say
are
our
many-
culture is? Right. What do we say our culture is?
I
What
would
is black
say
culture?
that black people in America feel that they are just like the literal, just creators of the country after Native American people because I don't want to, because they were here first. Let's be very technical. But I mean, like, this country was definitely built on the backs of black people. So we think of culture, we think of food, we think of fashion, we think of hair, we think of advanced. I know when I was younger, like, my mom's a teacher. She's a Japanese woman, but she still taught me a lot about all the inventions that black people came up with that most times are discredited. We have a lot of shit that we do that we've always done, but a lot of times it's just about actually getting the recognition and not having someone come in and steal it and be like, oh no, I did it first. You know what I mean? I feel like if you really want to get technical about it, black people, and I feel like that's with all different types of people. There's so many different types of people that have done so many amazing things, but because of this one, what were we calling it? This one train of thought, this one, what is it? What were you saying it was?
What was I saying?
What is it? I don't know. You use a certain word for it. Like whiteness, like what it actually is.
Oh, the concept.
The concept, sorry. Yes. So
Damn, that was
we've
good.
let this one concept go so far as to taking away from every other person and letting them like be in the forefront, which is like also the scariest thing. So if you have this one concept that has literally built up your career, made you who you are, you literally sit on it, you sit in it, it's all fucking around you, and you don't acknowledge it, and you just get away with it, and you get away with
So
it.
what is black culture right now for us? Like what is like
think
what is
right now-
what is the gross what is putting out the most for black culture right now?
How do you surmount what it is? It's,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
how
it's
do you
think
everything.
attach value? How do you
questions. I
assign
think-
value
Yeah.
to that?
I think
You
what
know,
you're
what
asking is what is the zeitgeist opinion of what black culture is and what
What is how
Yeah,
like
yeah.
okay, so if we're giving away black people are giving away, I don't know, is this kind of going into your topic today? I just want to
Blackness and disability.
yeah, I want to go into your topic a little bit at some
It
point.
doesn't really. I think
Let's get
the
there
talk
with this though.
of intersectionalities goes into that
Mhm.
because I think I wish I brought my freaking notebook. I was just able to. So I'm a part of this organization. It's called the Pennsylvania Student Power Network, and it's basically like groups of college students all over Pennsylvania who like organize and figure out ways to systematically break down issues that affect us like every day. So we have like different campaigns and things that we like get onto, and like we go to like Harrisburg and like we actually try to like change it in terms of like legislation and stuff like that. So a couple weeks ago we got to learn about blackness and disability, and we had a speaker talk to us, and it was just really crazy hearing the historical like implications of disability and what that means for black people. So this, I wish I remember his name. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna figure that out and I'm gonna like come back with that.
Put it in the comments.
But he taught us about how like historically mental illness, when we think of mental illness, black people when they were escaping as slaves, them running away from slavery.
That was a mental.
Mental illness.
Mhm.
Get the fuck out of
Okay.
here.
Hmm.
When we think of like like when people were escaping and coming up north, and we think about like even just Pennsylvania, where we lie on this like weird like, is it the Mason-Dixon line? I don't know what the fuck that is. Whatever. There are so many like prisons and like mental health institutions, and then like these state schools, just weird shit, and it's all in this one border of certain places. And that's because when people were escaping or trying to get free, they were then captured and put into these places. Oh, you're mentally ill. You ran away. Oh, like you got to go to jail because like you ran. Like it's just so crazy to think about like how mental illness has now.
So like think about how like freedom was like a counterculture that was being labeled as having a mental illness.
And that's just
like,
one portion of it.
I think it's like the general idea is like there's no baseline. Well, wherever you put the baseline for mental health is going to be political.
Yeah.
So it's just like you can call a lot of people. I mean, people just use it in everyday language. You call people crazy. You don't mean they're crazy. You mean something else.
Yeah.
But the reason why we call them crazy is something similar to what you're describing.
So like just shit like that just like boggles my mind how like we don't even realize. And it's just like, if you knew about that historically, would you say the things that you say, or would you like operate in the way that you operate? Would more of your work and efforts be going towards like actually looking into these places that are like insane asylums or like institutions for people? Because a lot of the times it's just people that actually don't have the means and ways to like advocate for themselves and to be actually taken care of. There are literal schools that are made up of people who do have mental illness. But they're not taught They're not taught anything. They're just put into this room. You're going to school every single day, and you're just there.
And I think that's the part of like people not having like the attention. Like you put everyone in the same box, kind of, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, there's always larger and larger boxes.
There are.
So it's like what do you like? How can you do anything about these things without like specialized attention to everything?
I feel like for me, what I have to focus on is one specific demographic, and the people that I focus on are Black people, and understanding that Blackness has many intersectionalities. And the reason why I focus on that is because when I look at like the world as a whole, or like especially the country that we live in, we see time and time again that this one group of people are constantly at like the very bottom because of the way that they look, because of the based off the way that you fucking look. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that go into that. That's what I have started to build my work on, and like my school of thought, because I feel like I also have this idea, and I've learned this from many other people that I've watched over the years, but it's an idea of collective liberation and understanding that if like we can't all be free, if not, no one's free until we're all free, essentially. And for me, understanding like Black people and all the intersectionalities that they possess, if Black people are free as a whole, then everyone else will be able to be free. You know? But that's just like, again, my own personal thing that I've like come up with that kind of like gets me through the day, or like the next day, or like getting through the bullshit of understanding like what.
I see your affirmations on Instagram. Those are dope.
Thank you. You gotta try.
I think
this shit is crazy.
When it comes to mental illness, like it's across the board. And of course, I think there's a lot of like disregard when it comes to Black people, because we go through like there's like a lot of stuff that's to deal with, right? And then mental illness is like something that's like, you know, it's like, all right, well, that and this and this and this and that, you know, compared to a lot of other people coming up.
And I won't even say just mental illness. I'll say disability in general.
Yeah.
Because you know, like, we don't talk about people. We don't see it a lot. You don't really see people in the media that do have disability. And when you think about disability, a lot of the times as well, it's more physicality, and it's not always like mental as well. Like, you know, so I think that there's just many different things that just don't get talked about.
I think we gotta like just improve over time generally about your attention to disability and mental illness. You know what I mean? Because like mental illness is like a stigma that seems always sometimes negative, right? It's like sometimes people just need specialized, or like a group of like things need specialized attention when it comes to like I don't know, everyone's different. Everyone has different facets. Everyone learns differently. Everyone, you know, interacts with other people differently. Everyone, like, I don't know, people have anxiety. People have like, you know, nervousness, all this kind of crazy things, right? Back to my like little crazy input before, like there needs to be like something that everyone can like participate in, but also get specialized attention on. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's the most finite like data number. You're gonna get some issue with everybody. This is what I'm thinking, right?
I think so. I thought the point that you were making was that the baseline for like being for disability or mental health or whatever is going to be political, and so is the disability baseline actually. So it's like imagine like someone who's blind may not be disabled in a society that has Braille reading for everyone, and or like someone
resources available to like help them learn how to interact with the resources that are available for
there's
them.
no objective.
It's such a, like,
it doesn't seem like there's an well. So one of the complicating factors is that coming up with an objective kind of line for disability is difficult. So even if you're like born, say you were born without the use of your legs, if you live in a place that you have a healthcare system that gives you a wheelchair, and you live in a place that has laws that allow that like permit ramps for everything, or like make sure there are ramps everywhere, whatever.
it just becomes a decision
in
tree
effect,
that's
you wouldn't
already
be
been
in effect you wouldn't be disabled if that everything worked out perfectly, right? So it's just like that. It's just a completely political, environmental. The physical disability seems like an environmental decision. At least a lot of the mental stuff might be political. It might like someone who just doesn't get on well under one system of governance or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just like
And it's like there are studies that kind of go along with that too about treating. I can't remember what it was. It's something that I've seen like a lecture on about like not treating disability even as labeling it as such, right? Where it's just like you end up coddling someone and like you know what I'm saying, and not having them interact with society, then they don't undergo that hardship to like actually change how it is that they have to interact with it to become successful. So it's just like
it kind of implies that there is a baseline when there is no baseline. The baseline is just completely environmental. It's just that you happen to be born into a society that doesn't have Braille reading.
At all, anywhere. And now
exactly. When there's someone else, there is a Braille reading. That it might not be a problem with you. It might be a problem with the society in which you're born in.
I think
then it starts turning into. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but have you ever heard of this? What is that book? Is it The Giver?
Yes.
Like everyone gets sent into their like little perspective societies. Is that what has to happen? Like you get born with this, or like you come out this way, and then you get sent here immediately, and you go.
But there still has to be that
you would need a lot
into
of data
what
for me to
you
feel
are,
comfortable about sorting.
Sorting me out.
Like, I would need.
There's the AI.
I might be able to be convinced, but I need to see the data. Like,
because everyone has their different, like down to the most.
Like I would feel. I don't know.
Down to the most minute scale, everyone's different though, right? Like everyone has their own like personal disabilities.
Yeah, how unfocused do you make that
from
lens of like who gets?
I'm not trying to divert
where.
from the bigger. Like I remember you were saying like for these specific things, the only thing you can do is like interact with those people in your community in a certain way to make sure like you know to kind of like help. But like I always think like for some reason if the solution isn't like a grand solution, then it's not a solution at all sometimes. And I'm just like, all right, but like there's some people that are like that still have problems regardless of like what the grand problem was. There's like more problems under that, and you gotta be able to like go in and be able to help people on a like minute scale. So it's like weird for me to think of like I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It is weird though. It's a very complex problem. It's a very like
problem that I don't think is you can figure out without like. I think that like everyone has to kind of like break down the barriers. Like you just have to be nice to everybody. Everyone has to like be able to say like, okay, I realize that this person is this way, and I have to accept this person. And like, if I'm going to be a friend or something like this, I'm going to be a benefactor. Like, I'm going to be a person that's going to like help this person. I'm going to have to help them in their way, not just in the general way of like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, honestly.
No, that sounds like it's on an interesting track. You're saying that like aid has to be thoughtful to the needs of the individual receiving the aid, rather than just being some like arbitrary bullshit. Like, here's a bunch of cash, fuck off.
Right.
Yeah, I will take the cash.
Yeah, but
hell yeah.
but the problem is like there isn't like if you can't even establish a baseline for like loads of people, how are you supposed to establish one for individuals?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get at. It's just like
is one easier than the other?
It's like
is
trying
one
to
more
come this way
obtainable
or
than
come
the
this
other?
way,
Like, is it more obtainable to find a solution for the individual?
I mean, I think
No.
there are margins of error where we have a good understanding of how things work out, and we can address those right now.
Those are just norms, right? So yeah, that's one way to describe it. It's just like, you might say like a normal kind of quality of life looks like this. Yeah, yeah. That's one way.
And you know what? That's a good stopgap in my opinion.
It's not a bad place to start if we have a way. If we have a way to like, you know.
If we can start with that,
Because I
dramatic of a
guarantee the
shift-
average is. See, that's the thing. I wonder if the average is above or below where it is that I am currently.
You're definitely above the average
Yeah.
of the world.
No,
Yeah.
the world. No, not the world.
Oh,
no,
okay.
in America. Like,
Even-
no, not the world. No, I was talking about like
Really
just
high up.
national.
Yeah.
No, I was-
Okay.
yeah, like America is in the fucking 0.001% of the entirety of the
Okay,
population of
okay,
Earth. No.
right.
I'm talking about in America.
Right.
honestly, damn.
Yeah.
But then again, it's
Later.
relative.
Because
right?
my work, I know
Mhm.
the questions to ask. Later.
Have we concluded, guys?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, kind of exhausted a few
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah.
Anybody have a story to tell?
Right. Where'd you get that Louis chain though?
Oh.
right here.
Is anybody else gonna talk about it?
Oh, I don't got my
Easy,
glasses.
that's
Is
it.
so I
anybody
You
else
can't
already
gonna talk
know.
about it?
What's up?
Virgil
Girl.
Abloh.
Girl.com. Shout
Yeah.
out to
Well,
Yeah.
I tried to buy some breads off of those. I saw the price going up, and I said, politely.
What the fuck?
Politely excuse myself
Back
from
through
this
the hedges,
discussion.
like, nah.
I said, why did I download this? Delete.
Raj, when are we having this party, bro?
Party.
This party for your, you getting your papers,
Wanna-
your couple of
you-
papers.
When I
You're
get
done
my
your
paper.
paper. You hand in the paper to get a paper.
I don't know whenever I graduate.
Whenever
you go. Okay.
Maybe over the summer.
Coming soon.
Give me a party. Shit, that's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
That's a graduate. She's about
Well,
to
you
go.
guys
Graduation
both
parties
have
will be
it.
popping and shit. Done.
Me and Hapsam kind of have a story.
Oh.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Oh, do you want to talk about that?
I
The
mean-
printers and shit.
Oh, the printers. Okay.
Yeah.
it's like,
Well,
which story? There are a couple
tell
things that
them the
happened.
plan.
I mean,
Do you want to?
which plan? Like the plan? Like the thing?
The
plan.
plan,
Dun, dun.
files and-
All right. I mean, talking about the cosplay, right?
Yeah.
All right. So.
I was so excited to
Who
see
wears
the turn that
cosplays
took.
like that?
Run it.
Yeah. So me and Brent are gonna do a cosplay.
Okay.
Because my homie Figgy, he is a really talented dude. He's actually also at Penn. He's also a PhD student, history.
Oh, cool.
He is like a really talented costume maker / cosplayer.
Mhm.
His fucking like the Death Note
Yeah. mhm.
thing he did, fucking amazing. Anyway,
Shouts out.
he is helping me do a Black Panther cosplay.
Oh.
Now I'm trying to figure out if
Okay.
I want the Ryan Coogler one or the motherfucking Civil War one. The Civil War mask is dope.
Mhm.
The
You
Ryan
gotta do
Coogler
that.
one's body is fucking mind blowing. Like, and I'm trying to figure out like the electronics of it all.
Oh shit! Yeah, to actually have all of like the helmet be electronic
So you
or
just
like
have to 3D print all the pieces, right?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like me and Brent were talking. He's
Are you
gonna
looking
do.
for 3D printer?
No,
There's one
me and
over
Brent
there.
have one.
Oh, shit.
Well, two. I have one
I'm
and
a
Brent
proud
has one.
father of 3D printer now.
aw,
Um,
little baby.
Yeah, I gotta figure out how the motherfucker works and shit. I gotta calibrate and all that stuff. But me and Halftime, I'm gonna be Killmonger. He's gonna be. I'm just trying to manifest
T'Challa.
this. I'm trying to speak this into existence right now. But we have to 3D print a bunch of pieces and stuff like that. Have to
Yeah.
do some crazy. So it's gonna be a dope project.
Yeah. So honestly, any pieces that are too big for the build volume, like we can break up into pieces and
Right.
just like
And like glue it together.
have it glued together, or like go into the 3D slicer
Yeah.
and just like build in grooves so that they fit together.
Again, fucking nail it together or some shit. Not nail, but screw it or something.
But yeah, we're gonna look fucking fly.
Yeah.
That shit
I'm
sounds.
I'm not opposed.
What kind of stuff are you guys
to
building?
Pieces.
Like basically body pieces.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna
Oh yeah,
use-
like modified like a horn coming out of my shit or like.
Well, basically, we're gonna. I'm thinking about a bunch of ideas. One idea is to just straight up 3D print all of what I'm gonna wear using a plastic called Ninja Flex.
Mhm.
So it's a flexible plastic. So it's durable enough
It's
to
a
basically
silicone
handle
special.
joints and me moving around in it. Now, I could basically do a lot of tailoring and have a bodysuit that I stitch together and 3D print armor pieces onto.
Yeah.
Because I can 3D print like 2 or 3 layers of a print, like an armor piece, pause it, move the head and like move the print head.
Oh, nice. And then it just
Put
starts.
down the
This
fabric.
is the next phase of the
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
And, then,
And I could just like do the outlines of where it should be and just like line it up. And I can just 3D print some like crazy cool cosplay fabric.
that sounds cool.
that I
Shit.
can wear.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a 3D printed fabric you can print too. That's like completely flexible. I did not show you that, but I will show you that. I just came in my head. But yeah, I got some plans
Run it up.
for this. We got some
you
plans
all
for.
wear them once they're done?
Yeah, we're gonna
fuck
fight.
yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about fighting.
Just
we're
like a
gonna
concept.
choreograph
Just
a
like
whole-
stick it in
Or
like a
can we all
basket.
cosplay
Yeah,
on this
right?
one
Like,
specific day that
I'd be
you?
about
Because
it.
there's
I'd be
no
about
way
it.
I'm gonna sit in here if you two were dressed up and
Yo,
I'm
we
sitting here
can-
like.
we
Yeah.
There
It's
are
like-
there are
Street
3D
clothes,
printed
like-
claws shit that you can
Oh my
do. So we can like if we all want to be Black Panther, we can 3D print some claws and like hats. And
Just
shit.
a whole bunch of
I
Wakanda
would-
technology
like
out
the-
here.
we'll
like,
I would
be the
100%
original.
do it.
I'd be about it.
But then
I'm
everyone
about
else
it.
can also have like just little shit. So, all right.
Wow.
Set, it's locked in.
No, just fine. No, that's cool. That's cool.
No, if you guys are serious, like we can talk.
I would 100% do that. Yeah.
The
there's
3D
no
printers
way
are
I'm
like
gonna be
the
left out,
future.
though. Yeah, we have those at UArts. Not the place of choice. Don't go there unless you're white.
and,
Look out.
and I said everybody.
Look out. And that's it. Cut it right there.
Yeah. Cut
it right there.
Like,
We done now?
think so.
Thank you for joining us. Or I'm just gonna cut that part. I'm not gonna say it. Bye, guys.